Herkese merhaba, günaydın. Umuyorum beni net bir şekilde duyabiliyorsunuz. KOBİ'ler için proje yazma eğitimimize hepiniz hoş geldiniz. İsmim Kemal Onur Güngör. Sizleri 12.sini düzenlediğimiz ve Avrupa Komisyonu'nun hızlandırıcı programından faydalanmayı hedefleyen KOBİ'lere yönelik eğitimimizde ağırlamaktan memnuniyet duyduğumuzu öncelikle ifade etmek istiyorum. Bugünkü etkinliğimiz Ufuk Avrupa Programı'nın ana unsurlarından olan ve Ufuk Avrupa EIC hızlandırıcı programına başvurmayı planlayan KOBİ'lere, spin-off firmalara, startuplara ve bireysel girişimcilere yönelik gerçekleştirdiğimiz etkinlik, Avrupa Birliği ve Türkiye Cumhuriyeti tarafından finanse edilen, yararlanıcısının TÜBİTAK, yürütücüsünün Sanayi ve Teknoloji Bakanlığı ve rekabetçi ve sektörler altı programında desteklenen Ufuk 2020'de teknik destek projesi dahilinde gerçekleştirecektir. Projemizin 4 ana bileşeninden olan KOBİ bileşeni altında gerçekleştirilecek projemizin az önce zikrettiğimiz üzere projemizin isminde her ne kadar Ufuk 2020 ifadesi yer alsa da proje olarak Ufuk Avrupa programına adanmış bir şekilde aktivitelerimizi devam ettirdiğimizden ötürü yine hem bu program dahilinde hem de EIC Accelerator alanında güncel gelişmelere yönelik tüm konularda sizleri bilgilendirmeyi hedeflemekteyiz. Projemiz Ufuk 2020 programında olduğu gibi Ufuk Avrupa programında da yine Ufuk Avrupa programına adanmış bir şekilde aynı ivmeyle aktivitelerini gerçekleştirmektedir. İçerisinde bulunduğumuz etkinlik, bir detay vermek gerekirse projemiz altında gerçekleştirilen 99. etkinlik olma özelliğini taşımaktadır. Bu sebeple de hem TÜBİTAK yetkililerine aramızda bulunan hem de proje uzmanlarımıza bir teşekkür etmek istiyorum. 400 civarı başvuru aldığımız ve 100'den fazla katılımcıyı beklediğimiz etkinlikte şu an görüntülediğim kadarıyla 131 ilgili bizlerle birlikte ayrıca katıldığınız için teşekkür ediyoruz. Etkinliğimizin oturumlarını tematik anlamda ikiye ayırabiliriz. İlk olarak EIC hızlandırıcı programı kapsamında ilk başvuruyu gerçekleştirmek için nelerin gerekli olduğunu inceleyeceğimiz etkinliğin ikinci kısmında ise tam başvurunun daha bileşik gereksinimlerini detaylıca aramızda bulunan Philips Holden, Serkan Bolat Bey ve Merve Diyar Hanım ve Merve Polat Hanım'ın aracılığıyla değiniyor olacağız. Önemli bir not olarak 2022 yılı içerisinde yer alan cut-off tarihlerini baz alarak benzer etkinlik modellerini fiziksel ve online olarak hatta karma etkinlik modelinde tekrarlayacağımızı yine sizlere iletmek isterim. Etkinliğimizin değerli panelistlerini sizlerle tekrardan tanıtmam gerekirse, projemizin ana yararlanıcısı olan TÜBİTAK'tan Avrupa Yenilik Konseyi Ulusal İrtibat Noktası Sayın Merve Diyar Kaya bizlerle beraberler. Ayrıca yine TÜBİTAK'tan Avrupa Yenilik Konseyi Ulusal İrtibat Noktası Sayın Merve Polat Hanım'ın da bizlerle birlikte olduğunu sizlerle paylaşmak isterim. Projemizin teknik destek ekibinden İngiltere'den Philips Holden, kilit uzmanımız bugün bizlerle birlikte olacaklar. Yine Türkiye'den, İstanbul'dan aramızda yine değerli KOBİ uzmanımız Serkan Bolat Bey bizlerle beraberler. Umuyoruz ki aranızda etkinliği gerçekleştirdiğimiz Zoom yazılımına aşina olanlar çoğunluktadır. Lakin eğer ilgili yazılımı ilk defa tecrübe ediyorsanız, proje ve TÜBİTAK uzmanlarımıza sorularınızı Zoom menüsünün alt kısmında yer alan Q&A butonu aracılığıyla dilediğiniz zaman ve dilediğiniz dilde sorabileceğinizi iletmek isterim. Son olarak etkinliğimizin sonunda EIC hızlandırıcı desteğine başvurmak konusunda hepinizin daha iyi bilgi sahibi olacağınızı ümit ederek ve daha güçlü sonuçlar alabilmek, daha iyi sonuçlar alabilmeniz adına daha güçlü başvurular yapabileceğinizi temenni ederek sözü TÜBİTAK'tan Sayın Merve Diyar Kaya Hanım'a vermek istiyorum. Merve Hanım, söz sizindir.
Çok teşekkürler Kemal Bey. Herkese günaydın, merhaba. 99. etkinlikte bir araya gelmekten mutluluk duyuyorum. Bu bağlamda tüm proje ekibine de tekrar teşekkür ederim. Şimdi müsaadenizle ekranımı paylaşacağım. Sıkıntısız şekilde görünüyor sanırım.
Evet Merve.
Good morning, everyone. I'll continue my presentation in English. Welcome to our project writing training, which will focus on full application process and also short application process to European Innovation Council Accelerator Program. I am Merve Diyar Kaya. I work with Tarık Şahin and Merve Polat as European Innovation Council National Contact Points in TÜBİTAK. Firstly, I would like to mention a little about framework programs. As you may know, it's a funding program of EU, which mainly focus research and development and innovation. First framework program started in 1984, and now we are at the beginning of the ninth framework program called Horizon Europe. Turkey has involved framework program in 2004. And since
Merve Hanım, böldüğüm için çok özür diliyorum. Ben Kemal, eğer slaytları ilerletiyorsanız biz göremiyoruz onu.
Gerçekten mi?
Evet, isterseniz full screen moduna geçelim tekrardan.
Bir saniye, onu nasıl yapacağım?
Yine aşağıdan tekrar giderseniz paylaşalım. Şimdi görebiliyoruz. Framework program slaytındasınız.
Tamamdır ama sanıyorum tamamdır. Şöyle yapalım o zaman. Okay, Turkey has involved framework programs in 2004, and since that the framework programs have been coordinated by National Coordination Office in TÜBİTAK. Compared to Horizon 2020, there is a significant change on Horizon Europe program and also in European Innovation Council. Last 3 years of Horizon 2020, EIC was in the pilot phase in the innovation in SMEs and excess risk finance section under the industrial leadership pillar. Also, Ancestor of Pathfinder, which is future and emerging technologies, was under the excellence science pillar. Now with the Horizon Europe, all these programs came together and formed EIC under Innovative Europe pillar. You can see in here structure of European Innovation Council. There are 3 major programs, as you can see, Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator. And for all 3 programs, we have open calls and also strategic challenges. There are also EIC prizes and EIC community. And finally, there are also business acceleration service under EIC. Now I would like to give brief information about who we are and what we do. As you see for now, our new website for framework program is ufukavrupa.org.tr. It's very comprehensive and well-designed web page. In the middle of the main page, you can find European innovation parts, European Innovation Council parts. Via the web page, you can find all announcements and news about Horizon Europe. So I strongly recommend you to subscribe our website and newsletter. Moreover, you can find all detail about events organized under Turkey in Horizon 2020 project in the IPA projects section. In EIC Accelerator page, you can find all updates, news and announcements regarding the program. Also, you can find our contact information. When work program for 2022 will be officially announced by a European Commission, we'll also update this page. When you register our newsletter, you can mark SME Innovation Grant section. So all related info about EIC Accelerator will be sent via your mail automatically. On the main page, there is also Who is Who section. You can find contact information of national contact points for Horizon Europe. And in order to encourage participation of Turkish stakeholders to EU framework programs, TÜBİTAK provides some supports and awards. These supports and awards program designed for SMEs and also for researchers and institutions. Supports and awards for Horizon Europe calls are updated. You can find all updated information in the related page in our official website. And finally, I would like to briefly mention about InnoSub codes. By using this QR code, you can find many codes designed for mainly SMEs, but also for institutions, organizations, and researchers. These codes are related with all sectors, strongly suggest to look and analyze all the calls related to your sector. Here you can see our official Horizon Europe social media account. I also recommend you to follow these accounts because all updates and announcements regarding Horizon Europe and about our events will be shared via our social media. Before conclude my presentation, I want to remind you that me and my colleague Merve will be here during the event, so you can ask your question either in English or Turkish. Thank you for listening to my short presentation. And now I would like to hand over Philip and Serkan Bey to provide you with an insight into some of the aspects that will help strengthen your short or full proposal for the EIC Accelerator. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thanks.
indeed, Merve. A very important point you make there, that we're all here, and we'd all like to deal with any questions you may have, so fire away. We look forward to trying to answer your questions. We have people from TÜBİTAK, we have our own project team, and if we can't find the answer, we'll get back to you with that as soon as we can. So, where are we? Okay. Let's just stop here for a second and go into, these things always go wrong, so bear with me. Okay, so this is me. Anybody who's a regular viewer, listener, or attendee at our events will have met me, and I've certainly met many hundreds of people in the Turkish SME community, as well, of course, across the board in large companies as well. My own background, I've been around a long time, as you can see, over 40 years of working experience with SMEs, with large companies. I own an SME, so I can appreciate some of the problems and issues with SME. You're not only dealing with research, development, innovation, but you're also dealing with workers and finance and what happens next month, next year, and so on. You have a lot of pressure on your shoulders. I've worked on national programs in many countries. I've worked in 35 countries. Probably Turkey I've worked in the most, so I've got to know the country very well. I love Turkey, so I'm pleased to be able to help in some way. And training, we've had, I think, just in this project alone, our SME training is extended to almost 40 events. So today, what we're going to cover, we've already heard from TÜBİTAK. I'm going to give a brief overview of Horizon Europe and our project, because we always begin these events this way. So sorry if you've heard it before, but there are people who are new to us, and we need to tell them what it's all about. Then my colleague Serkan, who's an expert in the topic, will go through the first application process. We'll have a short break of 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll look at the full application process. So if you're only interested in the full application, you can take a bit of a breather until around 11:15. We'll also cover some of the issues we find in Turkish SMEs when it comes to applying for these programs. Serkan will cover how to prepare a pitch deck, which of course is part of the initial application process. And then I'll do a short presentation on the 3-minute video, which is also part of the initial application process. Questions, we've got lots of opportunities for questions, and we can take them as we're presenting through the chat available on Zoom. So please ask away. None of the questions are stupid. None of them are obvious. If it's a question you want to ask it in either Turkish or English, then we should be delighted to try and help. So this is the project team. Lots of different aspects to our project, but today Serkan and I there are boxed in red, and our support team in Ankara, Kemal and Celine there in green. They do all the organizing and sit in the background and help when things go wrong. So we're very pleased to have their help and support. So the project we're talking about, we talk about Turkey and Horizon 2020. This is the contractual title of our project and can't be changed without a lot of hassle. So think of it as Turkey and Horizon Europe now. We're firmly geared into helping on Horizon Europe, and all of our training and support is geared towards it. So it really is Turkey and Horizon Europe. You see the 4 areas there of support that we give, lots of training. Introductory training. At the moment, we're running a series of events across Turkey looking at the introduction to Horizon Europe and what's involved. We also have specific help, for instance, on IPR and access to risk finance. That could be commission risk finance as well as private sector, of course. Project writing camps to help to develop proposals. And then if we look at networking, we've had major brokerage events, both physical and online. Unfortunately, the global pandemic on COVID did interrupt for a while the support we're giving, but we migrated to online and carried on the support as we are doing today. Unfortunately, though, that did affect our international study visits, where the idea was to visit other countries and see what they were doing in terms of applying for and winning EU funding, but they may come back again depending on how the pandemic peters out, and let's hope we all see the back of it in 2022. I think that would be the best gift ever. We shall have the award ceremony, and I've already mentioned the conferences and information days. On the SME side, which is the area that I'm responsible for, we're able to give some support to companies in preparing their proposals. It's a limited number of companies, but we're able to help. We give, of course, this is one of the project writing training events, and we also have project writing camps where we look specifically at proposals that are under development for applications. They're usually events to be attended by around 20 people. We, under the SME instrument, help to develop feasibility reports into full proposals. And we already had one training event on financing, investment financing, and we shall be having a pitching event in the middle of next year in pitching to the Commission. Again, we hope that that will be a physical event. To help on all that, we of course have the modern tools of website, help desk, training guides, and lots of other things. Our website, we've been running now for around 3 years, so our website has masses of information sitting on it in terms of presentations on lots of different topics, including, of course, today's event, which will be is being recorded and will be placed on the website fairly quickly afterwards. So do take a look at the website, do use the help desk and have a look at what's on there. Behind that, of course, the EU are particularly good at providing websites on all of their programs. They're very easy to follow and understand, and I would recommend that you take a look. We'll be giving the web addresses later on. So what do we do to help on these specific cutoff dates? Now, next year's cutoff dates are something of a mystery. The EU have not formally published their views. Originally, there were to be 2 cutoff dates, mid-year and then one in the autumn. We were then informed unofficially that there would be 4 cutoff dates for next year, and the first of these will be, or was planned to be, on the 12th of January, but we understand that at the moment this is still under discussion and the 12th of January one may not happen. So there may be 3 cutoff dates next year rather than 4, but we wait and see. We, of course, geared for the event perhaps happening on the 12th. The plan was to have the event on the 12th. So we have today's event looking at the short and full applications, and we also scheduled another event for the 7th of January ahead of the 12th to deal with specific questions and answers on proposals. That may be postponed, but it depends on the Commission publishing their official dates. But we did plan ahead, and if the 12th happens, we should be well prepared. So we shall have to wait and see on that one, and TÜBİTAK, I guess, will be the first to hear from the Commission. So a quick look then at what's behind the Horizon Europe. Of course, the EU is a political and economic union of 27 countries. So all of those countries want specific goals. They're all at different stages of development. They all have different interests. And the role of the Commission is to bring that together as a uniform set of political priorities. Now, that being said, it means that those priorities are very wide and quite high level. Some would even say general. But the overall aim politically is, as it says there, a sustainable, fair and prosperous future for people and a planet based on European values. All of those, of course, economic, social, health and other values. Tackling climate change has become, of course, very prominent and accounts now for roughly a third of the target budget. But some see this as a threat, but it's actually a huge opportunity in terms of saving energy, in terms of more efficient battery, more efficient energy usage, reducing waste, reducing the amount of plastics. It's huge potential. And of course, the European Union sees this as an international prospect for growth. So helping to achieve sustainable development is part of that. And of course, boosting the European Union's competitiveness and growth. This converts into 8 topics that are seen as relevant to all and are part of their strategic thinking. So areas such as gender equality, ethical research, and of course, research with integrity, proven research, if you like, disseminating so everybody can make use of things, the social sciences, social innovation, and so forth. Very broad again, but now moving into more specific areas. We've seen from Merve the 3 pillars, which incorporate all this as the Horizon Europe programme. We're sitting there in pillar 3. The European Innovation Council is part of that pillar 3, making Europe more innovative and capitalizing on innovative ideas. The focus then for the Commission over the next 4 years. Now, these are all things that if you can build into your proposals and submissions, will give you those extra few points, if you like, on the scale. So if you can show that your project relates to the European Green Deal, it's climate neutral, resource efficient and so on, it will help. And that goes for all the others. So the digital age, anything that involves artificial intelligence and the digital economy, that of course must work for people. So making things an attractive investment, your project an attractive investment, and creating quality jobs. Remember always you're in competition, and it's very stiff competition on these things to show that your project is better than others that are also being judged at the same time. So make use of all of these to show that your project is better than those. So a stronger Europe, of course, is what the EU want, and promoting the European way of life in terms of law, justice, ethics, gender equality, and so on. And that also goes into European democracy, perhaps not really a huge part of the innovation projects, but it still sits there in the sense of helping Europe to be a better place. I talk about Europe, but of course this all includes Turkey in that. A little bit of Turkey is in Europe anyway, but it's all part of the same program setup. There is a recovery plan too for Europe post-COVID, whenever that will happen. So it's worth having a look at all of those political ideals and seeing how your project can support them so that you can mention that in your applications. Certainly in the second full application, it's important. They're the key areas with the digital transformation. I won't read through all this. Sustainable development, but it's fairly obvious. Creating a more resilient, inclusive and democratic Europe, restoring Europe's ecosystems, biodiversity and so on. They're all ideals, but all are worth thinking about to see how you can fit your project into them. It has to be said that looking at the fit with these ideals, It could be that one area is oversubscribed with projects, but your project may fit into an area which has fewer applicants and therefore may stand a better chance of winning funding. Again, it covers a wide range of things. I'm not going to go through everything on the screen there, but anything to do with digital technology, health technology, and so on. These are one of the main strands of their strategy, digital and health technologies. And similarly, I mentioned the environment, the Green Deal innovations for economic recovery. Of course, it's been spotted that this is huge economic potential, and therefore making things future-proof, longer-lasting, globally competitive. All of those things fit with a stronger economy, more jobs, and a better standard of living. Under the European Innovation Council, they have 3 areas which Serkan will cover in more detail. The Pathfinder is more future-looking, advanced research, and so on. The transition is taking previous research and forming it into a marketable commodity. And Accelerator, which is the main interest among SMEs, is hoping to bring out the innovations of tomorrow, ideally in a disruptive form that can take over the world would be the ideal, but that's the top level. But below that, there are, of course, lots of innovative projects with potential. Just to show that the original plan for Commission funding was between the 2 blue dotted lines there. They were looking at funding simply the valley of death, as it's known, between the funding for research and the funding for commercialization. But under Accelerator, the black arrow there shows that the Commission are far more committed to the commercial side of things. They have funds to invest, venture capital funds to invest. They have a network of private sector funders, and it's much more geared up to commercializing projects, and perhaps has moved more away from research. Other areas of Commission funding help on the more basic research. This is about a workable idea, a good workable prototype being taken forward and put into the marketplace. So the accent is on what's the market, who are the customers, who else is out there, what's the competition. These are all questions, again, that Serkan will cover. So getting ready for Accelerator is not just about writing about your project, it's about looking at the documents that are available. We mentioned the EIC Work Programme 2021, but of course the 2022 one is late in being published and should be published quite soon. Once they finish wrangling around budgets and various other things. There is also a very good guide, Accelerator guide for applicants. The various tools mentioned in there, business modeling is part of it. Business planning is an essential feature of it, managing data and financial planning. And then from that, you can start building a proposal that not only covers your project and what you want to do, but also encompasses some of the things I've just been talking about, which are strategic goals within Europe. And your proposal, if it gets through to the full proposal, will be checked to see how it fits with the European strategies on the various topics, the key strategies. It will help if you can cover some of the EU vision and priorities, some of the sustainable development goals, of course, fitting with the EIC strategic areas for projects, and fitting with the process of application in terms of dealing properly and fully with all of the questions they ask. So those are our contact details, and you'll see that quite regularly through here. If you have any questions, please fire away. But otherwise, I'd like to hand over to Serkan, who will take us through the first application process. Over to you, Serkan.
Thank you very much, Philip. Let me share my screen and my presentation first. So my name is Serkan Bolat. I work for Turkey in Horizon 2020 Phase 2 project for the last year under the supervision of Philip. we work on SME development trainings, webinars, and particularly EIC Accelerator application process. I also work for the European Innovation Council as an expert evaluator, doing remote evaluations for the last 8 years. So today's presentation is based on my experience and insights, as well as official EIC documents, EIC work program, and guide for applicants. I would highly suggest you to go over those documents and to keep yourself updated on all those matters related to EIC Accelerator. Particularly, guide for applicants is specific to EIC Accelerator. The work program is published by the European Innovation Council annually. We have the 2021 work program. As Philip said, we are still expecting for the work program for 2022 in the upcoming days or weeks. It's already late. We will update all our presentations, and we will also keep you updated about the new developments and new requirements of the EIC Accelerator in the coming days. As you know, EIC Accelerator is part of Horizon Europe, and it is managed by European Innovation Council, EIC. It is open to SMEs and mid-caps. No consortium is needed. Actually, you can only apply as a single SME, and it supports high risk, high growth, market creating breakthrough innovations from any industry, any sector, any type of innovation you can apply, except military projects, security and defense projects, as well as those projects that can do harm on the environment. So if you have a military defense related project, then you can apply to certain different calls supported by European defense funds or other calls. EIC Accelerator requires 3-step proposal submission and evaluation stage. Short proposal, full proposal, and jury interview. Now I will be talking about short proposal. Then after the break, we will focus on full proposal, jury interview, pitch deck, and the pitch video. Here is what the impact since the beginning. Horizon Europe previously didn't include any support program for specifically SME innovation. Since the beginning of Horizon 2020 in 2014, it included a program called SME Instrument. Now, after the Horizon Europe introduced, its name changed to EIC Accelerator. Previously, within the last 7.5 years, more than 3 billion euros of grant and more than 7.7 billion euros of equity support were given to more than 5,500 SMEs. And most of those SMEs were very young, micro SMEs and startups. And the support wasn't just limited to grant and equity. It was also included business acceleration services, including trainings, webinars, and pitching events, and overseas trade fairs. And in the last couple of years, there were more than 1,200 SME pitching events. And the EIC has a database of more than 400 of investors that you can approach after you have the grant and or equity from the EIC. And for instance, when we look at this data, we see EIC itself supported those SMEs with close to 1 billion euros of equity. But in follow-up investments, all those SMEs, after they received the grant and equity, were able to receive business acceleration services and were able to pitch their projects to investors, and they received almost 10 billions of euros of equity from all those investors, which eventually created at least 2 unicorns and close to 100 centaurs, and 31 SMEs among them achieved their IPOs, initial public offerings. So their shares are traded in stock exchange markets in all over Europe, including US and China. Actually, 96% of those EIC beneficiaries sold their companies to investors or other large companies, and 30% of these 96 companies were actually US companies anymore. So you have a variety of options and growth potential once you are accepted to accelerator program, either grant or equity part. So far, 49 companies were supported from Turkey within SME Instrument or EIC Accelerator pilot or the actual EIC Accelerator, and 28 weren't supported by the money, but they got the seal of excellence, which let all those SMEs access to all those business acceleration services, including those I mentioned as pitching events, investors, overseas trade fairs. So here's how it works. First, you submit a short proposal. Short proposal is very quick. You need to answer almost 15 questions in the online platform, and then you need to attach a pitch deck and a pitch video. It's open all year round. There is no deadline. Once you submit the short proposal, you will receive the result first come on a first served basis in 2 to 4 weeks. So your short proposal will be approved. Short proposal aims to filter the ideas. When you submit a short proposal, you are not applying for money, grant, equity, or any kind of support. It's just to filter ideas, and they decide whether your project and team is suitable for Accelerator. So your approval is valid for 1 year. You can pick one of those cutoff dates in the next year for full proposal submission. Currently, we are still waiting for work program for 2022. So these cutoff dates are provisional. Currently, we think there will be 4 cutoffs in January, April, June, and October. But the first one could be canceled or postponed. We are not sure yet, but we will keep you updated about the upcoming news. So when you submit your full proposal, your results will be sent to you in 4 to 5 weeks. If you pass full proposal stage, you will be invited to jury interview. And jury interview will take place in a 10-day period. So there is not just 1 day for jury interviews. You will have a scheduled appointments with jury panel. And the results will be out in 2 to 3 weeks. And if you win, you will sign your grant agreement within a month or so. If you also request equity support, then you will have another agreement for investment, but it will come after the due diligence, company valuation, and other calculations and investment term sheet. So here's an example. For instance, if you target April 6 full proposal cutoff date, you need to submit your short proposal in late February at the most, so that you can have the results in 3 to 4 weeks, and you can have enough time to submit your full proposal for April 6. If you pass full proposal stage, your jury interview will probably take place in mid-June, and grant agreement, if you pass jury interview, will be signed early August. Once you sign the grant agreement, you will have pre-financing. This is different than most national grant programs. In Turkey, we usually spend the money first and then bring the invoices and reports together and send them to granting association organization. Then we will receive our money. But here in Europe, Horizon Europe have pre-financing. About 40 to 50% of the grant amount you requested will be given to you at the beginning of your project. Then you will spend the money and report. If you need more money, you will get the remaining balance throughout the end of the project duration. So if you also request investment after the due diligence project, you will have your investment agreement by February 2023. This is the general outline of the schedule and timeline for the accelerator. So who are eligible for this program? The grant is given to SMEs. As you know, SMEs are companies who employ less than 250 companies with less than 50 million euros of turnover or less than 43 million euros of balance sheet. But Horizon Europe gives a great opportunity for individuals too. So individuals can apply for the grant. You can submit your short proposal and full proposal, and you can go to jury interview. If you pass and if you granted the award, then you can establish your company before the grant agreement. So if you currently work in a university or in a big company, or if you are a team working as a large part of a large company, you don't have to just quit your job or establish your company as soon as possible. You can submit your idea as a short proposal, then wait to get the grant. Then before the grant agreement, you can establish your company, register your company. Small mid caps who employ less than 500 employees can also apply, but they are only eligible for equity support, not for the grant part. So another important point for the scope of the EIC Accelerator, we have technology readiness levels. If you are familiar with technology readiness levels, it's a 1 to 9 measurement scale to show the maturity of a technology. If you are at TRL 9, that means your technology, your product or service is commercialized and available in the market. If you are around 4 to 5, you are working on the prototype. If you are at TRL 1, then you are just developing your basic research hypothesis or product concept. So scope of the EIC Accelerator covers between TRL 5 and 9. So if you are at TRL 5, you can apply. If you are at TRL 9, you can apply too, or any mid TRL. So what kind of support is available? Between 500,000 to 2.5 million euros of grant and up to 15 million euros of equity plus business acceleration services. Grant money can be spent for TRL 5 to 8 activities, which is innovation activities, R&D development, product development, demonstrations, piloting and testing. TRL 9, as we mentioned, commercialization activities, sales, warehousing, distribution, marketing, and or overseas expansion activities. So grant money supports 70% of total eligible cost. So you need to finance 30% co-financing by your own resources, your revenue, or other investors. And for the equity part, EIC fund will be the investor in your company, and they will take 10 to 25% of your share based on the term sheet and based on your request and agreement. Plus, if you're willing to have other investors in your company, you are also able to ask for co-investor search step. So EIC can share your project information with a database of investors with more than 400 investors. And then if you are willing to talk to them, you can pitch your project to all those investors and you can get them on your site in addition to EIC or rather than EIC. It's totally up to you. And business acceleration services covers mentoring, coaching, training, corporate days, innovation trainings, and pitching events and overseas trade fairs. This is not something you can underestimate. As far as I know, there are at least 3 overseas trade fairs and exhibitions. One of them is Consumers Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January. The other one is in Dubai. It's a health event. And there is also another event in the US, San Diego. It's also a health event, and exhibitions, fairs, conferences, meetups. You can develop your business network, etc. You can have a booth in those exhibitions, and most of your cost will be reimbursed by the European Innovation Council. It's a great opportunity. So there are 3 different types of funding support. First, grants first. If your innovation needs further validations before full market deployment, if there are many uncertainties, if you are working on a deep tech innovation, then you can ask for money first to continue your R&D and innovation activities. Once you decide that you can commercialize your innovation, then you can turn your grant first funding type to blended finance. So you can also ask for the equity. This is a great option for early stage innovation projects. And there is also another grant-only option. If you secured your funding for commercialization activities, if you don't want EIC or any other investors in your company having shares, then you can apply for grant only, but you need to document that it's not going to be limited to R&D and innovation activities. Your project should be definitely deployable in the market. You should be targeting to commercialize your innovation. So you need to show that you have investors or revenue or capital to fund your commercialization activities. Otherwise, you cannot receive this grant-only support. And the last one is blended finance. It could occur in 2 different types: full blended, grant plus equity. So if you don't have enough resources to support your grant activities as well as commercialization activities, full blended is for you, perfect. But if you are a late stage innovator, if you already completed your R&D and innovation activities, and you are ready to deploy your product or service in the market, you are ready to expand in Europe, you are ready to grow and globalize, then you can ask for money as an equity only. And then you will give some shares of your company to EIC or other investors. And you can also spend this money on whatever you want. In your short proposal, you will only indicate the type and amount of funding needed. For example, you can say, I need 2 million euros only for grant. But in full proposal, you can change this to 1 million grant and 5 million euros of equity support. So it is the full proposal where you will make your formal, official, final request for the funding decision. So this program is open to any type of innovation, as I said, except military projects, innovations, and those can do harm on the environment. There are 3 different calls: Accelerator Open, Strategic Digital and Health Technologies, and Green Deal Innovations. Cutoff dates for the full proposal are the same for all these 3 calls. Evaluation criteria are also the same, except these 2 challenge calls, what we call Strategic Digital and Health Tech and Green Deal Innovations, have 1 extra evaluation criterion to ask for the significance and quantified impact of your project regarding these priority areas. Short proposals submitted to Accelerator Open Call, you don't need to select the call you will submit. It will be done in your full proposal, because short proposal is very short and brief with limited information. There is no point to detail the significance and relevance of your innovation to these challenge calls. It will be easier for everyone to submit, develop your proposal, and to evaluate them by the EIC. So here are the key concepts that are featured and highlighted by the EIC in order to develop a suitable project for EIC Accelerator. First, it should be high risk, high growth, a competitive project with a good team. You can work on a disruptive innovation, a breakthrough technology. It could be a radical thinking with incremental innovations. It should be scalable, and preferably EIC underlines the importance of deep tech and their need for patient capital, because EIC doesn't want to be actually a permanent investor of all these innovative companies in Europe. They want to give the money whoever needs it the most, and deep tech companies, since they require the money the most and for longer term to support their R&D, they need a patient capital. So that's why European Innovation Council focuses on deep tech if possible, but the program is open to all types of innovations who need money. And UN Sustainable Development Goals and European Green Deal are also the 2 important priorities, goals that your project need to be relevant for. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are 17 sustainability, mobility, and environment-friendly goals to turn our world to a better place in terms of environmental concerns. European Green Deal has also 8 goals, similar to UN Sustainable Development Goals, and 90%, more than 90% actually, of the EIC beneficiaries projects who won grants or equity are relevant to at least multiple of these goals. Please keep this in mind. So we had 2 recent Turkish SMEs benefiting from EIC Accelerator Program, Soranus and Ambient. You can check the project details if you click these project titles. They received money from EIC Accelerator, only grant, not equity, around 1 million euros. These are the only 2 companies in the last 2 years receiving money from European Innovation Council. But previously, we had about 50 companies benefiting from Horizon 2020 SME Instrument Program, which is the predecessor of this EIC Accelerator. When we look at the numbers, short proposals, we had June and October cutoffs in 2021, just 2 cutoffs. And more than 2,300 short proposals were submitted, and 50% of them received go, so they passed the full proposal stage. And in June, for instance, 801 full proposals submitted for Accelerator, only 132, 16% of them passed the jury interview, and 65 of them, half of them, were funded either equity or grant by the EIC, but unfortunately none of them were from Turkey. If you can click, you can see the type of the projects and the type of funding and which countries were most successful if you click this file. So why do you need to submit a short proposal? First of all, it's a mandatory, except fast trackers. Fast track scheme is an exception. It allows short proposal step to be skipped if your project previously supported by eligible European programs. For example, European Innovation Council has 2 different support programs too, Pathfinder and Transition. Or European Research Council has a proof of concept support, and knowledge and information communities by European Innovation and Institute of Technology. It also has SME support programs. If your project was supported by all those different European organizations, then you can skip short proposal, but you need to first talk to the granting organization whether your project is eligible to skip. Otherwise, you need to submit your short proposal to EIC. And it is a good opportunity to receive comments and suggestions from expert evaluators. Then you can see how to develop, improve your project for further stages. And if you submit your short proposal as soon as possible, you will have the approval in your pocket, which is valid for 1 year. Then you can talk to other VCs, other granting associations, or business partners, or your future employees. So you have a high likelihood to receive funding from European Innovation Council, so you can act more confidently. So how to submit a short proposal? First, if you are not familiar with Horizon European grants, then you need to open a personal account first. If you click this link, it will take you to Funding and Tender portal page, whose screenshot is here. You will create a personal account. Your project team members, your employees do not need to have an account. If your representatives will communicate with the EIC, then they will need an account at later stages. So once you are able to create your account, then you need to register your organization, whether you are a natural person applying as an individual or as an SME. You need to register your organization and receive your participant identification code to use in your short proposal submission. Once you have the PIC number, you will go to EIC AI platform. Here is the link, bottom right of the page, Accelerator European Innovation SME Agency.eu. So this AI platform is different than Funding and Tender portal, and this platform is only used for Accelerator. All other Horizon Europe calls, applicants need to go to Funding and Tender portal to develop and submit their proposal, but Accelerator is an exception. This platform has 3 main functions. First, discover. You can put some keywords. It works like a Google to discover both European and non-European funding sources. If you are already, if you have already made your decision to submit your project for EIC support, then you can skip this discovery function and you can just go directly to diagnostic. It's a mandatory step. You need to enter your main project details and see some ratings and indicators. And then you will enter a PIC number and create and submit your short proposal. The last function, design function, isn't open to everyone, isn't accessible for short proposal applicants, so you cannot see the content and structure of the full proposal requirement. Once your short application is accepted, you will pass the full proposal stage and access will be granted to your company so that you can develop and submit your full application. Here is the content for short application. You need to enter your general proposal information and answer 15 questions online. And you will upload a pitch deck and pitch video, which we will talk about later. And here is the general information. I just copied all the required information from the EIC AI platform to these slides, because if you don't have the PIC number yet, you may not see the platform content. So it will be easier for you. But later, we can also go and visit the website and actually see how the online platform looks like. Inside the proposal, both short proposal and full proposal is structured under 3 sections: ideation, development, and go-to-market. In the short proposal, you will give information about your innovation and why it is superior to competition, what are the unique selling points, and you will talk about how you will develop and implement your project, what are your team members, how much funding do you need, and why do you think it will be successful. For go-to-market section, you will give brief preliminary commercialization ideas and thoughts and a few numbers about your growth projection. Here are the actual questions from the platform. There are some multiple choice questions and free text questions. It starts with what, your purpose of your project, type of your innovation, and you will mostly need to justify your choice. These numbers are the characters that you need to complete your answers. So you have 1,000 characters to give your answers, to please justify your choice. These are the next questions. You need to define the existing solutions and their limits, and then why your solution is superior to them, what problem you are satisfying, what kind of solution exactly do you provide, what is the technology readiness level, and why now? I mean, what is broken in the system now? What are the technology or other trends and developments that makes your project and innovation valuable today? These are the other simple basic questions about the type of entity. Are you an SME or individual planning to establish an SME if your project is accepted? And then your winning team. As you see, you are not required to upload any CV. You will just list domain of expertise of your team members and why they are a good fit for the company. You don't have to have the entire team at the beginning of your short proposal submission. You can always attach, not attach as a separate file, but you can include some information about your hiring plan, a brief recruitment plan, which roles are missing and how you will complete those missing skills throughout the accelerator project. And you will give a little bit more detail about your solution by using use cases and technological features it will have when you develop it at the end of the full proposal, at the end of the accelerator project. And risks are also important. If there was no risk about your project, then you wouldn't be here. There are always risks in innovation projects. The more important your project is, the higher the number of risks you have. So you need to be showing all those risks and your awareness and how you will mitigate if they occur. And we have 3 types of different fundings you can ask for: blended finance, grant only, and grant first. All these are indicative. You can put some numbers here and pick the type of funding, but you can change them in the full proposal. Details are here. You can check for further references. And finally, you need to give some information about your target market and how you will make impact in their lives, either they are business customers or individual customers. And estimate your time to market in years, including the project duration when you will launching your product. And business readiness level is another important point. As a short proposal applicant, your business readiness level will probably be around between 3 and 7, because you are still working on some demonstrations. You are not commercialized yet. And finally, go to market, a growth projection for your company for the next 5 years, some cost and revenue predictions, including job that you will create, both directly and indirectly. So short proposals are evaluated by 4 evaluators. If you receive 2 go from those 4 evaluators, you will pass the full proposal stage, and you will also have evaluation results with comments and suggestions on how to improve your proposal when you submit as a full one in later stages. Short proposal usually focuses on innovative idea and theme. And that's why the type of funding and amount of funding are just statistically purposely requested. And you can submit your short proposal at any time you want. We will have 5 evaluation criteria to assess the potential of your project, but you will be receiving only one go or no go, no score, no ranking. If you receive go, and these go or no go decisions will not be made on each criterion, overall you will receive a go or no go, and you will pass the full proposal stage. If you cannot, then you have a right to resubmit your proposal. There is no redress procedure, but you can provide your counter arguments as rebuttal in your resubmission. There will be 2 free texts that you can put why you don't agree or agree with the previous evaluators and how you improved your proposal at this resubmission. And you will also have a second time rejection and resubmission right if that is rejected again. But this time you have a right to complain about the evaluator's factual errors if there is any. If there isn't, you will need to wait for 12 months to submit another project or to improve your current project. So I wish you good luck. If you have any question, I'm here to answer. I think we have maybe a few minutes that I can go and show you the actual EIC AI platform where you will enter all those information. Let me see. Here is the EIC AI platform. Actual platform looks like this. The website is on the box. We have 3 different functions: discovery, diagnostic, and design. Welcome to the EIC AI platform. If you are looking for what kind of funding available by European or non-European associations, you can click discovery, and it works like Google. You can search for fundings in Turkey or other parts of the world. You can type your keywords and you will see a list of potential funding resources. If you click diagnostic, where you need to do, if you want to submit a short proposal, you will start with clicking create new diagnostic. Here are some already created diagnostics here. Here are the questions I already mentioned in my presentation: type of innovation, justifications, multiple choice, and free text questions. And at the end, you need to click see results to see certain technological and scientific ratings. These are only for statistical purposes, again, just to develop the EIC AI platform for the better. These are not taken into consideration by the evaluators as is. Evaluators are free to make any decision they want on your proposal. Please do not be discouraged if you receive bad indicators or results. Then you can click diagnostic and fill out all these texts. If you go back after results, you will see diagnostic results at the end. We will also have the options, funding resources. And you can click edit proposal if you'd like to continue and finalize. As you see, let's go through the end. Before the end, here you need to upload your pitch deck and video. Once you are satisfied, you can click submit my proposal. So these are all I want to share at the moment for short proposal submission. We will talk more on full proposal, video, and pitch deck later. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, I can answer them now.
Thanks, Serkan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. A lot of information there. We are getting questions coming in. That's fantastic. We've had just over 20 questions at the moment, and we have just under 200 people participating. So 10% of you have asked questions, which is good, but we'd like to deal with more. And we'll try and deal with them all in the course of the event. What strikes me when we look at this application process, perhaps in some cases out there for the first time, it looks very complicated and lots of questions to be answered. But I would turn it the other way. I'd say that many of the people joining us today are from a scientific and technical background, if not all of the people. If you were asked to fund a project, these are the questions that you as a professional would be asking. Will it work? Can the team make it work? Should I put money into this, or should I put money into something else? How long will it take to achieve this? Where is the customers? Where are the customers? Where is the competition? They're all questions you would ask if you were evaluating a project. So what the Commission have done is set out, of course, for a very large program across 27 countries and more, they've set out these questions. So it looks intense and formal, but they're actually the things that you would ask and that you should know the answers to if you're applying for a project. And if you don't, then you need to find those answers, not only for the sake of the Commission, but for the sake of your own business. You can't enter into investing in a project if you don't, for instance, know the market, the potential customers, and the competition. So a lot of it is very logical and is justifiable when you look at the amount of funding involved. Of those, Serkan, just to round off, what do you think are the key issues that companies need to know before they start completing that application? What will be the top 3 things, do you think, that they should get straight before they enter even into the application?
I would start with developing a business model for my idea. Business model is key because it reflects the entire project in terms of feasibility, viability, and desirability. It starts with customer problem and your solution, value proposition, and how you will make your customers gain the benefits from your solution. So that will be my starting point. If you don't have a business model, you will struggle when you look at all those questions in the online application form. But if you already have a business model, if you have a project in mind, it will be easier for you to understand and reply. You already have all those answers in your mind. Otherwise, if you start with looking at the proposal questions first, then you will try to give the best answer that could be accepted by the evaluators. Then you will probably provide inconsistent answers. They will not be coherent and concise, and they will give mixed views of your project in terms of whether the evaluators need to give a go or no go. So business model is key, including pains, gains, and value proposition.
Sure. Yeah, the thing that we've often talked around is that many of the businesses in Turkey have developed from the university base. They're people who are researchers who know all about researching in a particular topic. So they tend to say, look, there's cash around to develop a business. So from the research we've done, what idea can we come up with that we can get grants for instance? And then when that's developed, they start saying, so where can we sell it? So they have implementation, idea, need. Now the Commission look for need, idea, implementation.
Definitely.
The exact opposite. They want to know what they want to know what the need is, and then the clever idea that's going to solve it, and then how that idea is going to be put into practice. So need, idea, implementation is the route to follow.
Great point.
Yeah. Okay, now it's 11:15 for you in Turkey. It's 8:15 for me here in the UK. So we'll have a 10-minute break for coffee or whatever, and we'll start again at 11:25 and look at the full application. So goodbye for a few minutes and see you in just over 10 minutes time. Okay, see you soon. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So the legend is back.
Thank you to everyone for sending in your questions. We have a very lively audience this morning, I'm delighted to say, and many questions are being asked. It will obviously help if my Turkish colleagues are able to deal with some of the Turkish questions, but my Turkish doesn't yet extend to dealing with detailed questions about the European Union. But some very interesting questions, and we can go through those in our Q&A session at the end. But you'll see many have already got answers on there, so do have a look at our Q&A section to see what people are asking. So the second part, and arguably the most important part. So you've gone through your first application. The EU like the idea that your product is innovative and that your team can see it through. They like your pitch deck and your 3-minute video. We'll cover those shortly. And you're invited to submit a full application. At this stage, you do get some commission support. You can have support from a mentor for up to 3 days to help in developing your proposal. But I'm preempting Serkan's presentation. So over to you, Serkan, to take us through the second stage full application.
Thank you very much. So we are back again for full proposal this time. Thank you very much for listening us, staying with us. My name is Serkan Bolat. If you weren't in the short proposal presentation, I work for the Turkey in Horizon 2020 Phase 2 project for SME development, mentoring, and trainings, and particularly acceleration application process. I also work as an EIC expert evaluator for remote evaluations for the last 8 years. So this project is based on my personal insights, experience, and also official reference documents. So Accelerator is a European Innovation Council support program under Horizon Europe, and it is open to SMEs and mid-caps, but individuals can also apply, as you know, and high risk, high growth, market creating, disruptive innovation from any industry, except military technologies and products or services that can do harm on the environment, are supported. We had short proposal, and now we passed to full proposal stage before jury interviews. So we will focus on full proposal at this stage. As you know, we are still waiting for the European Innovation Council work program to be published for 2022. EIC publishes its work programs annually. And those work programs are particularly important for a few reasons. First, cutoff dates will be finalized. Second, we have been expecting a few changes about challenge call priorities or plugin scheme, or maybe a few minor changes in the application and evaluation and granting process. But we can target April 6 cutoff dates, I believe. And if you want to target April 6, you need to submit your short proposal in late February at the latest, and you will get the money if you are granted throughout to August. So one of the major concepts highlighted by the European Innovation Council is deep tech and patient capital. What are those two terms? Deep tech means your innovation is based on cutting edge discoveries and scientific advances, which requires long R&D phases, which will also give a slower ROI. That's why you need patient capital. European Innovation Council, if they give you an investment, if they make an investment in your company, doesn't expect a fast ROI. They can exit in 7 to 10 years, maybe up to 15 years from your company if you don't require them to leave sooner. So they have the patient capital for your deep tech projects. That's why they emphasize the importance of deep tech. And deep tech isn't equal to high tech. I mean, if you are working for an AI-based, cloud-supported machine learning, high-level advanced algorithms, this doesn't qualify you for a deep tech project. unless you discover something new scientifically, if it isn't based on a long R&D phase. So you can be a farmer, an egg manufacturer, but if your innovation is based on scientific advances, you can still be a deep tech innovator. Let's look at a few slides about how deep tech is different than other types of innovations. 3 weeks ago, European Innovation Council organized its first summit, European Innovation Council EIC Summit 2021. Next year, they will organize another one. And during this 2-day event, Deal Room Co, one of the collaborators of the European Innovation Council, gave a presentation, and some of those slides focused on deep tech. I copied 5 of them in my presentation. Why deep tech is different and how you can approach those types of innovations. For example, this is a comparison with other types of innovations with deep tech. Deep technology is characterized by high R&D risk and product market risk. For example, if you have a biotech innovation, market is always there. So people have health issues, health problems for thousands of years, and the problem is there, the consumer is there. So you just need to develop the product, discover some scientific or medical theories or applications or product services, treatment methods, tools, diagnostics, and the market will be receptive. And digital startups usually have easy to develop. Those projects usually combine existing technologies and services, but there's a high market risk, product market risk, particularly because you have the innovation, digital technology, but market, you need to establish product market fit to make them successful. And deep tech startups scale differently because of this extended R&D phase. As you see, regular digital innovation startups, it's easy to complete those R&D phases, and then they struggle in product market fit, a valley of death phase. And deep tech startups spend too much time and money to discover something scientifically important to build their innovation on, and then they scale faster once they establish that product market fit, and that once they demonstrate the success of their innovation. And many of Europe's top deep tech companies previously were supported by government fundings, including BioNTech, as we see. It's a biotech company, but it also has deep tech components. And we also see EIC here in several lines. So European Innovation Council is willing to support deep tech companies. And this also shows that if you were supported by TÜBİTAK or other national supporting granting institutions, you can also give these examples to support your argument that you are a deep tech innovator, because your innovation took too much time and you received several government fundings to develop your innovation. Actually, most deep tech companies, all those unicorns and centaurs I mentioned before during my short proposal, received grant several times before the EIC itself. Some of those companies received SME instrument phase 1 support, then phase 2 support, then they applied for EIC Accelerator and they received equity support now. So these are the times and how those different rounds of investments approach to deep tech startups. As you see, deep tech startups take too much time. It's harder to get funding for deep tech startups, and they take less money from other innovations because their innovations are risky. That's why EIC wants to come in and support those deep tech companies, because other types of innovations have already great potential to receive funding from national or European or private investors. But once they receive those fundings and they support to develop their innovations, those deep tech startups scale fast and they are able to develop unicorns in less time than 20 years ago. So full proposal development, as Philip said, European Innovation Council provides 3-day EIC business coaching for full proposal development. This support isn't given to short proposal applicants, but if your short proposal approved by the EIC, you have access to this 3-day business coaching whenever you want. You can apply for it as soon as possible and benefit from it at your first submission, or you can just wait and try your chance to see. Once you get first rejection, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it happens, you can get the 3-day EIC business coaching during your resubmission. TÜBİTAK also, as mentioned, gave a lot of support for proposal writing and other types of support for full proposal development. But again, for short proposal development, there isn't much support. But our presentations, webinars, trainings, workshops, and project writing camps and Q&A sessions are always available for short proposal applicants too. So in your full proposal development, you will first address your short proposal evaluation results. As you know, there will be 4 evaluators for short proposals. If you receive 2 go, you will pass. So what about the 2 no-goes on those evaluation results? You will talk about them at the beginning of your full proposal. You will explain why your new full proposal is different, how you improved your full proposal based on the suggestions made by the earlier evaluators. Particularly, you need to focus on fundraising effort. You shouldn't be getting funding from all types of VCs, granting institutions. Normally, you don't have to be non-bankable, but you need to have a hard time to attract funding from VCs so that EIC can support you. This is the main issue in most proposals. If you try to show that your project doesn't involve a lot of risks and you are able to receive funding from many VCs in previous rounds, then EIC would hesitate to invest in you because you have enough funding available revenue or capital. So you don't need EIC support for grant or commercialization supported activities. I mean, investment supported commercialization activities. And you will also need to focus on full market deployment. You cannot develop your project as an RD project or as an academic one or a scientific one, even if you have a deep tech innovation, even if you will spend 3-4 years for development before commercialization, you will still need to forecast how your full market deployment will look like and how much money you might need in 3 years or so. And you can change most things from short application, including the type of funding, amount of funding, your team members, your technology readiness level, among other things. So this is the starting point, I believe, would be the best before your proposal development. Business model, Canvas. This is a very popular tool that most of us are already familiar with. And the EIC full proposal content actually literally expect you to develop a similar business model, which will look like this one. So they refer to Alexander Osterwalder, the inventor of this business model Canvas, and want you to develop a similar one while submitting your full proposal. The right side usually focuses on value proposition, customer relationships, customer segments, and channels, which shows the desirability of your project, innovation. And the left side, partners, activities, and resources, usually more about feasibility, whether you can keep the promises you make. And the bottom part, cost and revenues, are about viability. This isn't just about business model, so it's also a feasibility. So in your full proposal, the evaluators will have access to your short application that passes the EIC evaluation, and your pitch deck and video included in that application, and the 4 evaluation results based on that short application with all those contents. So evaluators will know about go and no-go comments and criticisms, and they will first probably read all those comments. So that's why it's important to address all those criticisms or your counter arguments if you don't agree. In the full proposal, you will add a business plan, and which will be created online through EIC AI platform, and a new pitch deck. Even if you decide to use the same pitch deck in your short proposal, you will need to upload it again. And there are 3 mandatory additional files: freedom to operate, analysis, data management plan, and financial information. And if you have letters of support from VCs, customers, business partners, or stakeholders, you can include them. There is no page limit. And you are also available to add 10 pages of maximum images, graphs, or any other types of tables or information in Annex. We will look at them in detail later. So let's start from the full proposal. The first two questions you need to answer is the call you will submit your proposal for. Accelerator open or two challenge calls, strategic digital and health technologies or Green Deal innovations. For the first one, you can submit pretty much any type of innovation. For the second and third one, they have some priorities, which we will talk about. And the funding, you are already familiar, but we will deal with them. We will briefly touch on them too. Blended finance, grant first, and grant only. Even if you apply only for equity only support, you will still pick a blended finance. So these are the three calls: open, any technology, any innovation from any industry; digital and health technologies, they have priorities, which makes it easy to decide whether this is the right call to submit. Computing, quantum, blockchain, AI, machine learning, IoT, cloud. Even if you have an innovation relevant for strategic digital and health technologies, for instance, you can still submit that project to open call. It's up to you. No project will be deemed out of scope if you submit to a different call, but they will be treated better, more appropriately if you pick the right call, because open call proposals can be evaluated by anyone, expert from any field, but Green Deal innovations will be evaluated by the experts with high domain expertise. So these are the important eligibility and ineligibility issues. Grant money is used for innovation activities that will cover TRL 5 to 8. They could be prototyping, piloting, validating, demonstrating, and your planning and analysis assessments for technology readiness level 9 commercialization activities. So if you need to plan for commercialization, market launch, all your planning and assessments are eligible costs under grant supported work packages. For market deployment activities, we can say commercialization and any kind of manufacturing, sales, marketing, and communication, distribution, salespeople, expansion and growth, opening new offices, whatever you want. Everything is eligible under TRL 9 because you will give company shares and you will receive that money as an equity. So these are the three types of funding you need to pay attention to a few things. First, grant first. Innovations that need further validations can apply for grant first. So you are an early stage research and innovation project. You can pick grant first. You are also eligible to receive 30% co-financing. Normally, grant money covers 70% of the total eligible project budget. So 30% is co-financing, and it is up to you to how to finance that part. But in grant first, that option is also available if you can document the scientific, technological, and importance and impact, potential impact of your project. EIC can also support your co-financing. So you will spend no money from your pocket, and every cost will be covered by the EIC if you are a grant first applicant. And you will identify a key milestone before at least 6 months before the project end date. For example, if you have a 24-month project, in the 18th month, you will need to achieve your key milestone, which will show that your project is still valuable, you are prepared for commercialization. So those further validations are done successfully. So at that time, your grant first funding type can be turned into blended finance. So you will open to due diligence process. So within the 6 months, your due diligence will be performed. And by the time your grant supported accelerator project ends, your equity only project will start with investment agreement with the EIC. As a grant first applicant, since you are not sure about even whether you need to commercialize or not your project, your go-to-market section in the proposal will be broad and you will not be expected to go into details. But within TRL 5 to 8 activities, grant-supported activities, you need to include some tasks to plan for commercialization. So grant only, that means you have the investors' own capital or potential revenue for the co-financing and funding of commercialization activities. So that's why you are a grant-only applicant. You only need money for grant. And in that case, you need to clearly differentiate the activities between grant-supported and equity-supported types, so that you cannot fund your commercialization activities by the EIC. And blended finance, if you need both grant and equity or only equity, you can ask for blended finance. If you are at TRL 9, you already developed your product and you need to expand in Europe or globally, you can just ask for the equity part. Then in that case, you will not have any work package or any activity for TRL 5 to 8. So it will be a shorter proposal if you ask for equity only. And these are the choices made by the EIC Accelerator beneficiaries who submitted their full proposal in June 2021. There were 65 beneficiaries receiving more than 300 million euros of money. Average amount of grants per project was just above 2 million euros. And average number of grants was, average amount of equity support was close to 4 million euros. But for equity only applicants, those 5 requested 40 million in total. So 8 million euros of support per project was available. And they will receive this money after due diligence. So this is the content of a full proposal. Again, as in short proposal, we have ideation, development, and go-to-market sections. But this time structure is a lot more detailed with a lot of open-ended questions, free text, multiple choice questions, and boxes, and several tools, including SWOT analysis or Michael Porter's 5 driving forces for industry analysis, or Geoffrey Moore's technology adoption life cycle and blue ocean strategy. So they structure the full proposal content just like an MBA task, MBA homework. These are the example questions that are included in the guide for applicants, as I linked in my first slide. So please go to guide for applicants to see the entire list of questions. They are not 100% reflect the questions in the online platform, but 80% of these questions are the same, and 20% is up to you. It depends on whether you pick equity only or grant only, whether you are an SME, natural person, or at what type your technology at. If you are at TRL 5 or if you are at TRL 9, you will have a different set of questions. Ideation, development, and go-to-market. These are the details of the questions. As you see, people see some of these questions, some important ones. I put some screenshots from the EIC AI platform in my presentation so that you can look at them. It starts with ideation. For example, one of the first section of the ideation part is the pains and gains. So which pains your project targets, and when they experience your value proposition, what kind of gains all those stakeholders will experience. You could pick competitors, RD organizations, or large companies, or as stakeholders. You can also pick, obviously, customers. These are just examples. Pains and gains are always the most important and the first questions that you need to answer even before your short proposal. But if you know more about full proposal, I think your short proposal would be more thoughtful and more persuasive, because you will use the right terms and the right content in your short proposal. As you know, short proposal have just 15 questions, but full proposal have 200 questions with certain terminology. So it's better to refer to those questions in the full proposal in some extent, preliminary, draft, or brief versions in your short proposal. So this is how the use cases and features look like in the full proposal. It is a little bit more detailed in the short proposal, but full proposal, due to EIC AI skills, capabilities, your full proposal will take all your answers from your short proposal and put them in the relevant parts in your full proposal. So you will not need to enter the same information in the short proposal. You will not need to copy and paste all of them on your own. The AI platform will do it itself. So in your full proposal, use cases and features, you need to define and attach all these use cases for certain customer segments and why you develop those features for which customer segment. If you already have a business model in your mind, you already have the customer segments, value proposition, and what kind of features and tools you will provide them for what reason. So it will be easy to complete all these forms, and AI platform will help you not to miss any part in the full proposal. For example, if you list any features here, AI platform will also ask for the same feature to put in the work packages so that no feature can be missed in the work packages. So this is a comparison table, your solution with the existing solutions. You will list existing solutions and compare them in terms of pains and gains with your solution, and how your solution is better, superior, how you have unique selling points and competitive advantages. And there are also risks, a little bit more detailed in the short proposal. EIC welcomes high-risk proposals. They want to support high-risk, high-growth, deep tech companies. So your proposal should have risks at least 4, 6. In some proposals, applicants list 15 risks. So it's not a problem. Your project can be risky, but what matters is description and awareness of those risks and how you are prepared to mitigate them if they occur. So the number of risks isn't that important, but your mitigation methods here on the bottom right box are really important. So you will be required to provide a work plan, which is a list of work packages. You will need to develop at least 5 work packages. Work packages categorize the tasks. Each task will produce at least one deliverable, one outcome. And they could be demonstrations, prototypes, reports, studies, or tests. We also have milestones that need to be linked to work packages and tasks. Technology readiness levels that you will progress will be mandatory milestones. If you are at TRL 8, then you will have 1 mandatory milestone. If you are at TRL 5, that means you will have at least 4 milestones. And one of them will be key milestone. You will identify that one, except technology readiness level 9 for grant first applicants. So based on the key milestone achievement, you will continue to your project and even ask for equity. This is how work package looks like. Months, costs, tasks, and relevant partners and people, type of deliverables. You will give all these information in such tables for each work package. For innovation activities, you will need to include at least 3 work packages for technology, market, and project management. For market and scale-up activities, which means for TRL 9 activities, you will also need to include at least 2 work packages for market and again, management of that section, innovation activities and market scale-up activities. So at least 5 work packages, and 90% of the proposals include only 5 work packages, but you can also add 1 if your case is different, if it will make you more efficient and effective. So your team, again, you will not need to include any CV or detailed information. Please don't put any CV in Annex or anywhere else as well. So you just need to include their names, potential positions, and domain of expertise. Your team shouldn't only be limited to your employees in the payroll. You can also include your contractors, part-time employees, or your contractors, experts, or advisors, or lawyers working for IP tasks outside your company. They are all part of your team. You will also add a recruitment plan for the people you will hire during or post-TRL activities that will make your team look stronger in terms of implementation. So here is the value chain. In today's world, no company can be successful on its own. For example, if you are a mobile phone manufacturer, you need Android store and app developers. If you are an app developer, you need the mobile manufacturer. And both needs 5G mobile phone operators, right? Internet connection. So all the value that will be experienced by the customer actually depends on a value chain, not just a single manufacturer or innovator. So you need to show how your stakeholders, partners will be involved to create a better value proposition and how they will be included in your value chain network. So here is the business model I mentioned. This is almost the same, and target customers are more important. That's why they ask questions about target segments separately. But you need to fill out almost the same business model canvas and include it here. And again, another competitor comparison table. What kind of solutions they provide, why yours is better, how you can steal customers from them, or how you can out-compete and create your own lane, monopolistic competition. And here is a SWOT analysis table required. So you need to list your opportunities, threats, weaknesses, and strengths, and how you will benefit from those opportunities, and how you will avoid or mitigate those threats, including your action plan. And scaling is one of the important sections, particularly if you ask money for equity for commercialization activities, because your expansion and growth is mostly depending on your scaling ability. Scaling means growth with increasing profit margins. So let's look at the mandatory uploads: pitch deck, freedom to operate analysis, data management plan, and financial information. For pitch deck, we will talk about more on this. There are certain requirements for short proposal and full proposal pitch decks. Freedom to operate analysis and data management plan have no templates. You can provide one-page files or 20-page files. In freedom to operate analysis, you need to describe your IP. What is your IP? What are the barriers and restrictions related to IP rights in your target customers? Are you free to develop and commercialize your technology in certain markets, or are there any threats or market barriers or other companies that have the same IP and that develop the same or similar IP before you? What are the issues you may encounter? These are the topics you can touch on in your freedom to operate analysis, and you will also attach a brief data management plan. It could also be a 1-page or a 20-page, a few paragraphs. You just need to show your awareness of data protection, collection, and preservation issues. You will develop a full data management plan, a full freedom to operate analysis if you win the grant during the accelerator project. And there's a downloadable Excel template, a spreadsheet to provide you as a template, so that you can fill out that Excel sheet and upload it, including your financial information, forecasts, and revenues, and balance sheet if you have one. If you are a startup, if you are a natural person, you can keep the first columns empty for 2020 or 2021, but you can still give information about your projections for the next 3 years. And there is no predetermined financial ratios or projections to meet. For example, you can ask for 1 million euros of grant, but you can expect 5 million euros of revenue in year 5, and another applicant can ask for the same grant, but he can expect the same amount of revenue in year 10. So both can win the grant. It's not a matter of evaluation. And there are two optional uploads: letters of intent and annex. In letters of intent, you can have letters of support, reference letters, or commitments from venture capitalists and partners, pilot customers. You can share customer testimonials, or you can talk about how you can organize your pilot projects in those letters. You will also have the option to attach an annex. Some of those applicants do not include any annex because it's optional, but letters of support are almost a must, even if it's not mandatory legally. So full proposals are evaluated by 3 evaluators on 3 criteria. Again, there is no scoring or ranking, only go and no-go decisions. So you will need to have 9 goes. So each evaluator has to give a go for each criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation, and need for EIC support. And you will have the evaluation results in 5 weeks. If you are accepted, you'll be invited for jury interviews in a few weeks or so. Please be careful. If you receive just 1 no-go out of those 9 evaluations, you will be eliminated. So what are the evaluation criteria? We have 3 main evaluation criteria, which will be scored on either go or no-go. Excellence. You need to show the timeliness of your project, technological feasibility at least TRL 5 or 6, IP protection and freedom to operate, and most importantly, your disruptive potential, your innovative idea. In the impact criteria, we have 5 criteria. If you apply for challenge calls like Green Deal or Digital Tech Health, then you will be subject to additional 1 criterion. It will be focusing on quantified significance and impact, relevance to those challenge call priorities. And the last evaluation criteria is level of risk, implementation, and need for union support. So your team should be capable and passionate, committed for your project. You need to have a working work plan with all the details, costs, eligible costs, differentiation of TRL 5, 8, and 9 activities, and the necessary milestones and deliverables. You need to be prepared for the risks for the project execution, and your project also need to include investment risks. So currently, you need to go and try to fundraise for your project, but market actors, grantors, investors, or banks shouldn't be willing to invest the amount of request you need for full project development. For example, if you need 2 million euros of money for full project development, you can get only 1 million euros of it from the VCs. For the rest of the money, you can apply for EIC support. But if you are able to raise the necessary amount from the private VC community, then the EIC wouldn't want to support your project with public money. So full proposal is similar to short proposal. Again, no redress procedure, but counter argument is possible in resubmission, so that you can explain why you agree or disagree with the previous submissions evaluators. And improved proposal can be submitted anytime to the next full application cutoffs. If you are rejected again, then you are not allowed to submit any full proposal again, and the next submission will be a short application, so you will start from the beginning. For jury interviews, there will be 4 to 6 jury members. They will be informed on all the previous sessions, evaluations, applications, uploaded files. It's going to take 45 minutes. It will start with your 10-minute pitch deck presentation, and then we will have 35 minutes open-ended Q&A with no structured set of questions or no separate evaluation criteria for jury members. Evaluations are already done, but they will question your team, need for EIC support, and your scale-up, scaling, and growth projections. And there will be only one answer, go or no go. If you go, then you will have the grant agreement in 1 month. You will also start your due diligence with the EIC fund for a potential investment agreement. And jury member resubmission is similar to full proposal, except that you can directly submit the next jury interview if the jury gives you a second chance, but otherwise the same as short and full proposal. And there will be a seal of excellence. If you cannot receive, go. If you're not awarded money. So finally, I think full applications forms are very demanding. It takes too much time and effort to plan for all those questions. So please start your proposal as soon as possible. Start working on your business planning, all those SWOT analysis, business model, industry analysis. By the time you submit your short proposal. And always ask for a second opinion or pre-evaluation from your colleagues, team members, or from us. And please keep yourself up to date because work program is still not published, and EIC AI platform is always in progress. So they sometimes change the questions or structure all the content. So you need to be careful. Even if you prepared your full proposal, please do not click submit button until the last 1 or 2 days. So if there is any change, you can benefit from those changes before the submission. If you receive one go, no go, you will fail. So consider the diversity of evaluators from all around Europe. There are more than 1,500 evaluators. 3 of them will be evaluating your full proposal. Diversity of evaluators is obvious. Most of those evaluators will be non-native English speakers. They will be from all around the world, actually, not just from Europe. So they have different backgrounds, cultures, and their expertise and experience are from different industries, different level of expertise. So you need to put something for all different kinds of evaluators in your proposal. And here are the reference documents that our presentations based on. Also, they will be updated in the next months, maybe. So you need to check all these references to keep yourself updated about the potential new requirements or changes about the accelerator program. So I wish you good luck. And if you have any questions, we are here today or later. You can always reach us by email or phone. We are happy to help. Thank you very much.
Serkan. That's quite a marathon. Thank you very much indeed. Again, you can see how the initial application is about so convinces it's a good idea and that you can see it through. But then when you move into the full proposal, it's the question, so how can you make it a business and convince us that there's a market there that's worth public funding? It is public money when all said and done. You know, from both Turkey and from the EC, and others might be able to justify it more than you can. So what they're doing is not putting up barriers, but they're offering you the opportunity of lots of questions for you to convince them and to convince yourself that the project's worth funding. And it has to be said, if you do hit a failure, you haven't sort of lost out, because it's taught you how to put a proposal together, to ask the questions you should have been asking anyway about your project, and it should help you then to get funding perhaps from other sources or to try again. But it's all about detailing the business. And as Serkan said, the EU are peculiar in that they're looking for a risk, and ideally you can identify a specific risk which is stopping the private sector from investing in your project, and if EU money was used to overcome that risk, it would then be of interest commercially. So this is what they're trying to fund, to get you over that hurdle. I showed the valley of death earlier, to get you between the research funding and the private sector. And of course, they would like you to use other sources for funding if you can possibly do that, because they want to make the public money stretch as far as it can on riskier projects. So it's a fine balance between the two. We have been receiving quite a number of questions. I'll just do a quick summary and then we'll move on. The difference between grant funding and equity is one that's often asked. Just briefly, grant funding is a direct grant from the Commission into your project against milestones that you've set out. Equity is then either from the Commission or from the private sector, usually more from the private sector, where they're buying a share of your business in effect. It might be actual ownership of that business, or it might be the profits from that business. over time, and again against milestones. And of course, they do due diligence before that investment is made. One of the questions asked if an SME with 5 people is acceptable. Yes, it is. Serkan's just covered that. A natural person, which is an odd term, but it means an individual, can apply. So no issue there. And again, they were under the impression that a small company, 5-person company, could only get equity and not a grant. Not the case. You can have both. And of course, the commissioner there to encourage entrepreneurship, so individuals are recognized as part of that. We're asked if there are any changes to the application system. We don't know until the work plan's published. We don't even know the cutoff dates, which was another question. It's due, it's overdue, and should be out soon, but we don't know. We were asked for if it would have been useful to have a presentation from a successful SME. Time doesn't allow that, but there is a presentation from a successful SME, which is in a recording on our website, and it's Project Writing Camp 6, which was held on the 16th of September. So if you look back at the presentations from that, there is a very successful SME giving a presentation on how they found it. The point was made, development agencies also provide pre-finance, and TÜBİTAK, of course, our financial support, as Merve told us. And we're often asked, is there a sample proposal? You can see from the complexities of what Serkan was talking about, first of all, they're confidential, of course, but it would be impossible. The idea is, we take this proposal, slot our name in, put some different numbers in, and we'll be successful. It doesn't work that way. All projects are so very different, and the questions are interrelated. I'm afraid it's down to the individual the individual team or company to come up with the right ideas. So that's a quick summary of the questions so far. Please keep them coming, Turkish or English, and we're very happy to deal with them. So moving on, try and keep up with our schedule. We'll now take a look at some of the issues we found within companies. Let me just see where we are on this. So feedback from some of the SMEs. Now, this is the second phase of a project, and in fact there was an earlier pilot phase, and I've been involved with all 3. So I've actually visited something like 130 companies thinking of applying, and we've seen many more proposals, and so has Serkan in his role as an evaluator. So this is a sort of combined feeling, and it's quite surprising how consistent the issues are across those companies. So the first thing to say is that Turkey has done it very well. As I said earlier, I've worked in over 30 countries. I think Turkey has one of the best systems of support for SMEs and innovation that I've seen. The infrastructure that exists, the way that you've grown your science parks, I think there are now over 60 science parks, many thousand high-tech businesses there. Linked to that, you have grants, tax subsidies, and so forth. TÜBİTAK provide excellent support, but most importantly, the talent that we see in those companies, very clever engineers and scientists, very clever, innovative ideas. So don't in any way think that you're second rate compared to European businesses. You're not. You lead in some fields, and you certainly equal, if not better, many of those countries. And because of that, increasing venture capital and private investment funding. Obviously, this is affected by global economies and issues such as COVID, but in general, there's more investment and there's increasing success with Turkey gaining European funding. Now, with any compliment, there's always a but. So here is the but. In those SMEs, they could do so much better. They're doing well, they could do so much better. There's often no strategy or business plan for that business. They grow organically, they're not planned. And often they don't recognize the full business potential of what they're doing. Sometimes companies feel safer to do more of the same. There's no real ambition to grow. Many are family-owned businesses, and often that's an issue with family businesses. They're happy to stay at the level that their grandfather perhaps established many years ago. Little bit suspicious of outside advice, more so than many of the European countries. And because the focus is often on internal markets, because the country has grown rapidly over the last few decades, there's a low awareness of external competition. Language also gets in the way of that, in that Turkish isn't widely spoken, and English, unfortunately, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for many people, has become the sort of international language. So a bit short-sighted on competition, and a lack of investment in marketing and product. The investment would rather go into equipment and sales instead of looking further forward at innovation and product development. Having said all that, many of the business do very well despite all those issues, but we're here with our project to try and release the greater potential. So the following comments are based on that. The key problems we find really divide into four key areas associated with markets, products, management, and resources. So looking at those four, on the markets, this is the what is the need question, which appears, some of these, all of the words in italics are questions that appear in the applications, by the way. So in answering what's the need, you shouldn't assume there's a market. Often we find that companies assume there's a market because perhaps there is one in Turkey. They assume that that market will be global. And of course, you need to look at what the market wants, what the need is, and whether anybody else is serving that market before you can go there. There's also an assumption that customers will want it. This often develops from a company who've grown their own technology. They think it's wonderful, it's their baby, and they assume that the world wants to buy it. But of course, that's not the case. Often we see companies step completely outside of their customer base. Now, that's okay if you're assured of the market, but if it's just a clever idea that somebody's had, and taking the first 2 points into consideration, assuming there's a market and a customer, you're perhaps not going to sell it to your existing customer base, so you need to identify the customer base that you will sell to. And in doing so, of course, you shouldn't neglect your core customers, because they're ultimately the people who are funding your company's development. So undertaking extensive research, detailed research on competitors, don't assume, and identify potential customers and check that your product is what they want, that they would be wanting to buy. Focusing on particular markets. Now, something we often hear is we're going to export to Europe. I think I'm right in saying Europe has 51 countries, 27 member states, all of them with different languages, often different standards, different competition, of course, pricing, need and demand. So you can't say export to Europe, you have to refine it. And if we take language into consideration, often the only common language is English. So that might be, in fact, the UK and Ireland that might be the market, rather than the whole of Europe to begin with anyway. So focusing on particular markets and checking them out, it's not that difficult to do this. I mean, if you, for instance, go to major trade shows and look around at what's happening in your particular sector, get an idea of who's in it, check it out. Not a huge cost in that. And, you know, it would inform you to begin with what's happening. And of course, yes, be innovative and adventurous, but also remember to stick to what you know and do best, as I say, because that's the basis of your business. Okay, so if we look at the market questions, these are the questions that Serkan has covered. What's the target market? Who cares about the innovation? Why do you think it would be a market success? What are the payoffs for your company in case of market success? So don't, I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, as somebody said, it's common sense, but then the response was, but sense isn't always common. Don't forget to check extensively if a product already exists. I've sat in meetings where people have demonstrated their clever idea. I've looked at the World Wide Web and shown them similar products which already exist and are being marketed. So that's easy to do. And you certainly shouldn't go down the route and cost your company money without checking it out first. So ideally, of course, the Commission are looking for the disruptive technologies. So incremental improvements are more difficult to get funding through. I'm not saying they can't, but the disruptive has more chance. The risks I've just mentioned earlier, that the risks need to be clarified so the Commission know what risk they're funding. And the point I made that what may be innovative in one market may not be in others. This is why you have to be sure of your market. And of course, don't assume success, which is easy to do when the product is your baby that you've developed. So try and make sure that you have a disruptive idea and prove why it is disruptive. The Commission love a wow factor, wow, that looks like a great idea, something that gives impact amongst the many proposals they see. So novelty appeals, if it's very novel, that will tend to score more highly. Because we're dealing with scientists and engineers, often the explanations are highly technical. Now, there needs to be enough explanation to show that you know what you're talking about. But if you do use acronyms, put it in full first. It's a convention, of course, to put the wording in full and then the acronym in brackets, and you can use then afterwards as an acronym. But don't fill it full of all this terminology. As Serkan said, many of these evaluators don't have English as their native language, and it has to be explained in a way that can be understood, especially if you're bringing out the novelty and the wow factor. That can be very difficult on a highly technical project, so look for those factors. Often when you fill a proposal with technical and scientific terms and evidence, but you don't know that much about the markets, what that does then is to highlight the fact you don't know enough about the market because you've overdone the science and technology part. So keep a balance between the two. You're more comfortable dealing with the technology, but you have to address the market. So show the balance. The same goes for business, finance, and management. So ideally showing a niche in the market for your product is what you're after. So in terms of the applications, who cares about the innovation? Will it have a broader, now these are impacts that are important: societal, economic, gender balance, environmental, climate impacts, and so on. What solutions exist and why do you think yours will be more successful? And why is it coming to the market now? So lots of tough questions there. Serkan mentioned earlier that you need a business strategy, and I would say you need a strategy, but you need to translate that into a business plan as well, so that you address the strategy and you achieve it over time. If you don't achieve it, then you know why you haven't, and you can change your plan and indeed your strategy as you go along. But don't think Accelerator is just another grant application. So many companies say to us, where's the form? How do I fill it in? Where do I send it? So forth. It's a full proposal. You're bottoming out what you're doing, the product, where the market is, and so forth. In doing that, don't simply assume, find out, because the evaluators will see those assumptions, and it can throw the whole thing. If you've assumed there's a market, of course, they will say, well, you haven't proven it, so therefore the funding goes to others who have. Often the proposals are delegated by management. The art of management, I suppose, is delegation, but management has to take a part in it. They have to be part of the team. After all, it's serious stuff, it's high level stuff, and management should be involved so that commitments are not made that can't be supported. So when you do talk about your business model, your strategy, your finances, make them crystal clear and well thought through, because if you go through to a jury, you can guarantee the majority of those people will be business people and entrepreneurs, and they'll focus on the business model, the finances, the markets, rather than the technology. So again, don't pitch a team of technologists unless they know quite a bit about the markets, the market potential, the customer base, because again, you'll come unstuck. So of course, the simple thing, don't forget to check that all documentation is correctly completed. In earlier paper versions of these applications, around 30% of the applications were not signed. A simple thing to do, but do check them through. So the business plan is essential. I always like to say, have a rolling 5-year plan, look forward 5 years. It might be a one-page thing, but where do you want the business to be in 5 years? And then if everybody agrees to that, develop a 1-year more detailed business plan to get you through that first year, to look at the finance, the resources, the R&D development and so forth. And then of course, every year you add a year to your rolling business plan, a rolling strategy rather, and you create a new business plan. It's a good way of working. You can go back to your plan once a month, once a quarter, see how it's working, amend it and so forth, because things happen that changes things, change circumstances, I should say. So take charge and manage. Yes, manage the process and the team and give them backing and support. And of course, you're talking of a lot of money. So give them the same priority perhaps as a customer that might be bringing in that amount of cash, 500,000, 1 million or whatever, would be a huge customer win. So treat them the same way. Build the enthusiasm of the team, drive them through. It's quite a tedious process. It's very detailed. There's a lot to do, and the team needs support and carrying forward. So inspire them. As Serkan said, enough time. Often these things people try and cram in a week or 10 days. It takes time to develop over all of the different questions and come up with the right answers, refine them and so forth to get the best proposal as possible, because you have few chances to go back. If you think it's too complicated, too bureaucratic, too much for your company to do, decide that before you go into the process, not after. You can save a lot of time, a lot of tears, a lot of effort and a lot of money if you think it's not for you to make that decision. But if you do go for it, then you need the commitment to see it through. So the management, lots of questions there about who's in charge of the team, who makes the financial commitments and decisions. The Commission don't like a committee on this. They like specific people, because the grant support or equity is tied to a particular responsible person. Who's going to manage it? Who's going to control it? What direction are you taking as a business? A standard question from the jury, by the way, how do you see your company in 5 years? Ask yourselves that question now. Where do I see our company in 5 years? And often it's a shrug. You need to be able to answer that. And of course, what are the risks of failure? If the project fails, what then are the risks? Will it jeopardize the company, or can the company sustain that loss? So don't leave everything to the junior people, as I've said. These are serious questions, key questions that management need to consider. I've talked about not overemphasizing science and technology. In the CVs, there's a tendency in Turkey to have a lot of information about academic achievement, academic positions and so forth, understandable from perhaps university backgrounds in many cases. But you have to have a balance with commercial experience, and that means finance and marketing. So look for the balance. If you're all very clever technologists but don't know much about management and markets, then it will come unstuck. And of course, it would be quite wrong to assume, if you're a very clever academic, that you know the answers on all other subjects. We all know that no one would think that. So don't ignore the help that's out there. There is a lot of help through TÜBİTAK, support programs like ours, and from the private sector. So it's to be a team effort. the ECA funding a commercial prospects. I said earlier, need, idea, solution, not the other way around. It's not a research project. They're not there to fund implementation. They want to fund the need, the idea, first of all. Make use of whatever resources are out there, and those companies that do get further. And of course, the balance, I've just mentioned the balance of the team in terms of technical, finance and markets, but with one person clearly in charge who can cover all those areas comfortably. And then the resources, we have the team and so forth. Any recruitment you need to do you need to cooperate with other stakeholders or subcontractors? Again, this key question, why can't you do the project without the EC support? Why not other funding sources? And then, of course, the detailed cost of developing the idea and the grant or equity needed from the EC. So making sure that the innovation is needed and who needs it, and that it doesn't already exist. Carefully review the documentation, work plans, calls, and so on, that your proposal will match. And earlier I covered all of the areas of both political and program directions that it's useful to fit with. If you remember, we talked about the Green Deal, the environment, the various technologies, social issues, and so on. So trying to make it fit as best you can. And of course, if it's a specific call, the fit needs to be even closer. Scrutinize the bidding process, ensure that you meet all the criteria for the completion of questions, documentation, and the financial tables. And this balanced team between not what you know well, which is often science and technology, with what you may be weak on, the commercial and marketing side. And ensure the budget's rationable and justifiable, because it will be tested to see where the money will go. It's public money, and therefore it's very important to make sure that it's secure. So that's a quick summary of what we found from companies. Hope that helps. You're still sending your questions, and we're delighted to see so many coming in, and we'd like to deal with more. But at this point, one of the main features of the EIC Accelerator is the need now to include a pitch deck about your project and a 3-minute video. So Serkan's going to give us a brief presentation on what goes in a pitch deck, what to do, and then I'll follow with a look at the 3-minute video. So the last half hour or so of our event will be occupied with these two things. So back to you again, Serkan.
Thank you very much. So let me share my screen to start my pitch deck presentation. And so I will talk about 15 to 20 minutes about how to create a pitch deck for EIC Accelerator application for either short proposal or full proposal. So what is a pitch deck? It's a story. It's a persuasive and attractive story that everybody who listens wants to be part of. In our context, it's a business plan overview in PowerPoint. It is usually 10 to 15 slides delivered in 10 minutes. And your basic goal is to raise money from the EIC or investors, private investors. And it's also helpful to sell your product and innovation to all kinds of participants and potential business partners. You can also attract new stakeholders. Eventually, you need all your customers to act like a brand ambassador for your innovation. So it's a mandatory for EIC Accelerator proposals. And you need to tell and convince the evaluators so that they can invest in your project, as well as other private investors in the database of European Innovation Council as part of EIC community. So for short proposals, you need to attach a 10-page maximum pitch deck. It will be in PDF format. So you are unable to include any animation, graphics, or sound effects or video links because it will be PDF. For full proposal, it is the same, except that there is no slide limit. You can include more or less slides, but full proposal pitch decks will be delivered to jury members if your proposal is accepted. And that presentation will take 10 minutes at the most. So your full proposal pitch deck should be deliverable in 10 minutes. No predefined template for any of these pitch decks. But for full proposal, it is expected to include 2 to 4 slides for your business model, including revenue model and your growth forecast and financial projections, as well as your target markets. Full proposal pitch deck will be delivered to jury interviews. You will be talking about it. So you can include more visuals and graphs, but in the short proposal, you will not be next to your pitch deck when evaluators look at it. It's going to be a remote evaluation, so it needs to be more self-explanatory. So then you can include a few more texts. It could be more understandable for all kinds of evaluators, even experts from other domains. So for the short proposal, your goal is to keep the evaluators interested in your full proposal. You will not be asking for money or funding any support in your short proposal, so you don't need to touch on every aspect of your project. If you can keep them interested, it's enough. But for the full proposal, you need to make the evaluators their final decision about whether to support you or not. So it's better to focus on each interesting aspects of your full proposal, including team, innovation, and potential impact. So let's look at an example, a real example from an EIC beneficiary. Here is a Spanish company, Able Human Motion. It received feasibility support from SME Instrument Phase 1 in 2019. And then he received money from private investors. And he is still benefiting from EIC Business Acceleration Services. Once you are a beneficiary, always a beneficiary. 3 weeks ago, European Innovation Council had a summit in Brussels. It was open to both online and physical attendance. And there were more than 12 SMEs, EIC beneficiaries, pitching to VCs from all over Europe. So this is one of those presentations. If you want to watch the full session, you can go to Picture Perfect session with eHealth MedTech Startups. It's a health company. So this is an 11-slide presentation delivered online in 5 minutes. So it starts with the main description of the problem. The first slide focuses on what problem the SME wants to solve. This is a mobility impairment. So here is the number of potential customers that might be interested in the solution that this SME can make an impact on their lives. There are risks so that the SME can try to make an emotional bonding with the impact and the VCs. And the next slide is what kind of solutions are already available in the market. So there are alternative products, but they are expensive, heavy, or only used in large institutions. So this, as a disruptive innovation, this company makes all these heavy, expensive, and only usable in large institutions, those products available for anyone who has the same problem. So the product will be light, easy to use, consumer friendly, and accessible and affordable for everyone. It will be attached to a mobile app, so it's not just a product. Then the AI and machine learning and cloud-based aspects come into the play. And here is the business model and revenue model for 2 different types of customers, both business customers and individuals they target. And here are the stakeholders, which constitute value chain network partners, and how the model works, and previous supporters. And here is the market size. They use the popular EIC terminology: total available market, serviceable available market, and serviceable obtainable market for both business and individual customers. They show the potential of the market growth and how big it is. There are unique selling points and competitive advantages as opposed to alternative solutions. And here is a popular roadmap, a time scale. Here, starting from the beginning of the project, even before the proposal submission to SME instrument, and it covers the next 5 years. Traction and roadmap includes both financial aspect, customer aspect, and the past accomplishments of the SME. And the almost final slide, what they request from the EIC or other investors, and for what purpose that money will be used in the next years. And so far, they received funding from European Innovation Council. They received Seal of Excellence. They were supported by the EIT Health community. And their innovation were also recognized by several incubation centers and accelerators. And here is the team. Team doesn't include only those people in your payroll, as we mentioned before. Your advisory board, contractors, external experts, and partners are also part of your team. And here is the last slide. So it shows the potential impact and how the product is used visually. So when we look at this pitch deck and several others, we see some of those teams featured in those pitch decks. Most pitch decks usually start with company information. So you introduce yourself and your company and what is your mission. And then you talk about the problem and how big it is, how significant it is for the customers, and total available market potential growth for your solution, so that it's worth to invest in your product. And then how you will provide your solution, and what it will do, why you will do it, and the technology behind it. Maybe you can show a prototype. Maybe you can let the investors experience the product demo, either online. It could be a simulation, animation, or an actual demonstration. And you will show your unique selling points and why the customers would prefer your product over the competitors' alternative solutions, and how you will make your project possible, how you will come into realize that business model, including all your partners, costs, revenue model for different market segments. What is your commercialization strategy, particularly for market launch? Which countries or which market segments you will pick for the first to introduce your solution? What are your financial needs for initial commercialization? And progress made so far, and the upcoming steps that you plan to achieve in later stages of your project in terms of technology readiness and business readiness. And your value chain network, you can also touch on this one. Part of business model, who are your stakeholders, partners, who are your supporters, how you will incentivize them, and your team members, employees, and their skills, how they make your project innovation stronger. And your growth projections is the final slide. Of course, in your short proposal pitch deck, you are limited to 10 slides, so you can combine some of these themes in one slide. So what are the tips for the style? The previous slide was about content. Now, what about the style? You see 2 slides used by a typical innovator, a startup founder, and the right one is Steve Jobs slide to introduce MacBook Air. So one of them focuses on use cases, features, and some numbers. The other one just try to impress the audience by a visual, communicating the same information actually. So which one is more impressive? The visual one is certainly more emotionally bonding and impressive and understandable in a pitch deck. So please use EIC terminology and limit your technical jargon, abbreviations, or long set of features. EIC already has a comprehensive terminology, including business model, customer pain, gain, stakeholder, value proposition, risk, use case, feature, SWOT analysis, technology adoption life cycle. So if you need to explain your project, please prefer EIC terminology if possible, so that everybody can understand and communicate better. Focus on key facts. You don't need to overwhelm the evaluators with a lot of information. Enough information to understand the innovation and appreciate it is enough. 3 key points for each slide would be better than listing tens of features or superiorities of your project. And you can make this possible if you provide more evidence, like customer testimonials, traction, key performance metrics, some kind of evidence and data. If you don't have the data, you don't have the confidence, so you will talk about more about your project. This will make your pitch deck longer. But if you are evidently explain your project, then you will be able to create a shorter and more persuasive pitch deck. So less text and more visuals. Most of the time, 70% of the slides are visuals, and 30% or less is text. And you can always include company logo and project acronym on each slide, so that, as they say, always be branding, always be selling. So let's look at another example from another EIC beneficiary. This is an ongoing project. Toposense received 2.5 million euros of grant from EIC Accelerator pilot. They started in 2020, and they will end in 10 months or so. It's a robotic startup, and their pitch is also available on the web. So it starts with company introduction, and then they talk about what they achieve exceptionally, detecting the undetectable, and what they do. And they talk about the current market, available solutions, and how big the market. And then they give more detail about the problem, and what are the problems with the short and long range scenes and sensing, and how they will solve this problem through 3D ultrasonic sensing in many use cases. And they give more detail and comparisons with alternative solutions, so that they can convince the investor. And they briefly touch on the business model, because they are early stage. This is also important. If you are a grant first applicant, you can give less detail about your project and your future. But if you are a TRL 9 equity applicant, then you need to give more solid evidence about your upcoming steps and financial projections. And traction is very important. If you show one customer testimonial, one satisfied customer, if you can show that you can make money out of this project, it is more important than referring to many journals, articles, or market studies that you get from your secondary research on Google. And the team, it's a standard. You present your core project team members, maybe 2 people, maybe 6, 7 people, and you also give a general information about the rest of the team. And if you have potential advisors, consultants, or contractors, or other companies that you will receive services like IP lawyers, you can also give more detail. And financial projections, and how much money you need, and what purpose you will spend that money for. And 3 million euros they need until the end of 2022, by the time the accelerated project ends. So everything will be smoothly executed. But one thing I noticed about these pitch decks, they try to make everything look like a perfect project. They have every capacity, every resource, business network, team, everything is in place. But then why do you need the money from the EIC? So there are certainly some risks, threats, barriers, market barriers, and challenges that you need to deal with. You need to also show some of those and how you will cope with them if they happen in the next years. So please don't try to make everything look perfect. Then they will question your reliability and trustability, and whether you are aware of all kinds of aspects of your project execution in the next years. So in the end, your project, your pitch deck needs to be emotional, novel, and memorable. You need to keep evaluators interested in your project, showing the significance of the impact you will make in the market, in European citizens and businesses' lives. You need to provide something interesting, something novel for the market. One of the most important motivations of the evaluators or jury members is to know what's going to happen in the next 10 years or so. So your project will meet the market in 5 or 10 years. if you are a grant first applicant, maybe most consumers will be able to buy your product in 10 years, in 2030. So all those VCs will be able to know the future in advance, thanks to you. So it's important part. And the pitch deck should also be memorable. By memorable, I mean the content and format of the pitch deck. If you keep it short with more visuals, with key but basic facts, it will be more memorable. And I wish you good luck. And if you have any questions, we are here to help today, now, or later. Our emails are already in our website and on this presentation. I attached 3 more exemplary pitch decks from EIC beneficiaries that delivered in the same summit. You can also look at those to learn about how to create a pitch deck or what kind of projects won this grant previously. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Serkan. One question that came in, you won't have seen because you were speaking. Pınar Erçak asks, could you explain what's meant by necessity for EU funding?
Sure. One of the evaluation criterion is the need for EIC funding. So why it is? So because European Innovation Council wants to support innovators and entrepreneurs who need the EIC funding to implement their project. If entrepreneurs are already, if the private funding or national funding or banks can already support the innovators, then EIC doesn't want to be investor in that project because they have limited budget. They want to save the money for the most desperate ones. This is the basic answer.
Okay, right. Okay, so we'll obviously deal with more questions at the end. We're coming to the last presentation. I have problems here. So Celine, could you bring up the 3rd presentation, please, on the 3-minute video? Celine or Kamel, I'm sure you're sitting there waiting. There we are. Thank you. Okay. I'm a long way away, so we do get problems. Okay, so the last one is a bit of a light-hearted look, really, at what's meant by a 3-minute video. So next slide, please. 2 health warnings. The first one is Accelerator and its video requirements are fairly recent introduction, so there's not a lot of guidance or feedback. It's building, but there's not a lot so far. So really, the presentation is mainly based on good working practice and common sense, but as I said earlier, sometimes sense isn't that common. So next slide, please. Second health warning, we all see ourselves as movie directors. We all like to get the camera out and take videos and all the rest, but we have to be aware of our own limitations. You wouldn't ask a movie director to do your engineering, and I'm sure the director wouldn't ask the engineer to do his movies. So we have to be aware. Next, please. So what do the EC say about their expectations? It's very simple. They ask for core members of the team, up to 3 people. Now, remember what I said earlier about the need for balance. So technical, financial, commercial, including, of course, marketing would be a good balance. So a total technical team is not likely to impress them that much. So core members of the team, up to 3 people, you should illustrate your innovation and the main motivation behind the application. Keep it simple. The objective is to show the team behind the idea and proposal and your motivation to see it through. If you don't have a team, you can include future team members or say how you plan to acquire the resources that you'll need to see the project through. Next, please. Now, I think the EC expects a simple video. Of course, they would say that, but it's your opportunity to show yourself and your project in front of the panel. It's very powerful. The visual images of a video get across the story much more quickly and much more deeply than a pitch deck. So it's an important thing. Often companies leave it till the last minute or don't give much thought to it, but I think it's a very prominent feature of any bid, and it should be given very careful thought. And I think it will become very competitive because it is an important way of getting the message across. Now, there's lots of resources online, video templates, and personal devices are very clever these days with the iPhone, iMovers, and so forth. But it's not just about the technology. There's a lot of expertise involved. If you go to the next slide, it tends to form into these 6 aspects: the actual format you use, the audience you're trying to impress, the message you're trying to get across, and of course the content behind that message, and issues surrounding presentations, and of course the technical aspects. So we'll deal with the first of these on the next slide: format. The common formats, we're all used to the explainer, the talking head, the guy or gal on the news bulletin who talks to us about various issues. But you'll notice even on news bulletins, there's a huge use of video, either in the background or to break up the talking head part, because talking heads, no matter how clever you are, is rather boring. So you've also have voiceover, where it's all pictures and you simply voice over the product, what's happening in the video, and so forth, in which case you have to be quite a good impressive voice, because again that can sound a little boring. You can do the interview where one person is asking another person about the product, what it will do, what the market is. There's also, of course, in many companies, existing footage of their products which can be used or combined into a video. And you can simply present the pitch deck as a series of video linked stills if you don't feel confident with all the rest. So different formats, give some thought as to what suits you, your business, and your products. And perhaps try a few if you can do them in-house. Next slide, please. So the audience goes without saying. You should know your audience. Now, your audience are initially the evaluators and then the jury. So a very specific audience there to impress. Give them what they want to hear. What they want to hear is what we've talked about this morning, about the disruptive nature of the product, the innovative nature, the confidence that there is a need, that need you have an idea to satisfy that need, and that you're able and confident to see the thing through. So tell them what they want to hear. It also helps if you can weave in some of those policy issues that I talked about at the onset, to do with saving the planet, making Europe a better place to live, and by Europe I of course include Turkey. So give them what they want to hear, but talk to them, not at them. Now, the danger can be, if you're from perhaps an educational background, you're used to talking to students, but also at students, instructing. But get them on your side, chat with them rather than address them, not too formally. So include elements that keep their attention. That's usually visuals of some sort to give you the impact and wow factor. A point there that our brains process images 60,000 times faster than text, so we can take on board a lot of images, and we tend to be rather lazy. I mean, we've used a lot of text in presentations this morning, but we don't read them if we're being given a presentation. We listen to the presenter, perhaps read the text later, but images are so important, and again, good images, wow images, are what you're looking for. The next slide, please. So what message you're getting across? So this is the wow factor. Make a good impression immediately. Get across your message, either visually or speech-wise, or both. And then follow it up with the problem that you'll be solving, the need, the bigger benefits to industry, society, the environment. I've just mentioned that. And don't forget your clever solution. How clever is your solution? You want them to say, wow, that's a great idea. Yes, there's a problem. I know there's a problem. They can relate to the problem, and then they can relate to your solution and find it novel, this word novel, with the wow factor. And the market you need to have identified. So you need to say, you know, the market is this and it will do that, and we've tested it and so forth. So include elements that keep their attention. You've put an awful lot of information in the proposal and in the pitch deck. So try and bring it together into elements that will keep their attention. Now, 3 minutes doesn't sound long, but a TV commercial is usually about 30 seconds and no more than a minute. You think of the message they get across in that 30 seconds, and you've got 6 times that amount to fill. So you don't have to fill the 3 minutes. It is a maximum, and don't simply look at filling it with words and pictures so that it goes to 3 minutes. Focus it and get the impact and make the impression, and keep the elements that are important. Next slide, please. So, content, keep it simple and to the point, short and snappy. I mentioned earlier, not using too much of the technical stuff, because it presumes the audience know what that stuff is, what the acronyms mean, and of course people are sometimes embarrassed to ask. So short and snappy, well explained. Plan ahead so that the footage you're using can be edited to the best effect. The industry, of course, in full film production uses storyboards to simply say what the different stages are, so that they can then film around it. Now, if you're going to be taking footage over a few days, make sure that you're wearing the same clothes unless there's a distinct break in the video. I've seen videos produced where people wear different clothes and even have their hair cut in between the images. It's then difficult to edit if people look very different for different scenes. So bear that in mind. It's a common problem with video production and film production, and indeed people spend a lot of time looking for these errors so that they can spot them. So plan ahead, include the team members, as we said earlier, the 3. Try and give them fairly strict scripts. Once given the floor and the camera, people tend to go on a bit, perhaps like I'm doing, so I'll keep it short. And you want a good balance between them. They want to be convinced that the team work as a team. They each have their knowledge, but collectively, you know, they're quite a powerful offer. And again, keep the language simple, using the English language. Remember, technologists may be in the minority and the judging panel may not be native English speakers. Next, please. Presentational issues, quality, clarity, fluency of the speakers, very important. Now, I can sympathize by the fact that most people are not native English speakers, but get people who can be understood in their English and are not disjointed in the way that they put the story across. If there is a problem, rehearse it, go through what's being said, try and refine it, and rehearse it as a script, because many of the evaluators will not be speaking English as a native tongue. Appearances, look smart, look presentable, look enthusiastic, smile, be a winning team. It's your visual opportunity to get the message across that your proposal is worth backing. Remember what's behind you. If you are doing filming, you don't want a pile of junk in the corner of the laboratory. You don't want people walking through with cups of coffee. You don't want the sun behind you so that they can't see you, only in shadow. Look behind, and especially when it's recorded, look behind, because these things are often missed. A moving camera is better than a fixed camera because of the talking head situation, but not, of course, racing around. Continuity, especially when editing, you don't want jumps between light and dark. I mentioned different clothing and appearance and so forth. So try and keep it steady. In the film industry, of course, they have people specifically for continuity to make sure that it's consistent. Next, please. Technical issues, camera angles. If the camera is high, it looks like a security camera footage, you know, taken of someone stealing from a shop or something. Too low, and people look gigantic and have very strange shadows. So be careful of the camera angles and the lighting to make sure that you can be seen in different conditions, be it dark or, as I said, on a sunny day. Check the lighting. Do you want to be close to camera or distant? If you're distant, there's more to be seen in the picture. It makes it more interesting, but you're less prominent. So check the camera distance and see which works. Sometimes it's backing music. I wouldn't suggest it in this by any need, but it's sometimes used. If you're in a laboratory and you're talking about a piece of equipment or something, working noises show the fact that it's working. It's as simple as that, but you don't want them to overcome your spoken word. So careful where the microphones go. The quality of sound in that situation, you need to be heard clearly. And beware of background noises, car horns, dogs barking, people clanking around in the background, because these we tend not to notice, but then they're very noticeable on a recording. Next, please. Finally, rehearse, refine, review, show the video to outsiders, accept their criticism, don't be defensive. We hate to see ourselves in video footage, and we don't like to hear recordings of our own voice. It's a human nature thing. You know, accept that some people may comment. The obvious mistake people make if they're speaking is the and they are. I would like to introduce you to our team. And of course, the modern equivalent of that is like, which is dreadful. I like develop this and it's like very good and there's like a market for it. I think this has been adopted in the UK's case from across the Atlantic. So get reactions, act on them, record and re-record. It's fairly cheap to record, and hopefully you'll be successful. So a quick summary of the 3-minute video. I think it's worth going beyond what is asked for because it's a very important marketing tool. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. So finally, hopefully you get the Oscar and win the funding. And if you have any questions, as we said all the way through, please ask away. We've had nearly 50 questions this morning, which have been dealt with as we've been speaking. So that's great to see. If you got any more questions, please. Over to you guys. Any comments on that, Serkan? I think you need your microphone on.
Video pitch is the only chance to introduce and give the first impression to the evaluators, and it is only available in your short proposal.
Yeah.
So full proposal will only include pitch deck, a new pitch deck, in addition to other requirements. So it's very important to focus on the video pitch right at the beginning.
Yeah, and spend time to do that rather than leave it till the last minute. But I think I'm right in saying you can change your pitch deck before the jury panel, but it shouldn't change too much. Otherwise, it looks as though you weren't sure of your application in the first place. But the jury then are able to see your video. They see all of the material, don't they, from earlier in the process, so they can see the video.
Right.
Yeah. We don't have any outstanding questions. They've all been dealt with. So we've answered 51 questions, which is great. The presentation, well, just to sort of summarize whilst people are thinking about final questions. It's a complex process. I hope we have enthused you rather than put you off. As I said, these are the questions you would ask if you were looking at a project and you were from a scientific or engineering background or a commercial background. You would be asking these questions. So the Commission are doing you a favor by asking these questions, because they will be asked at some point, whether you go forward for national funding or private sector or whatever. And it's a good exercise to go through them as a strategic planning exercise, and of course as an exercise in proposal writing. But having said that, of course, we wish you the best of luck in winning funding. Let us know if we can help any more. All of the presentations and recordings are on our website, and there's much more information there from earlier events. So for instance, there was an event we had now 2 years ago on pitching to investors that might be useful. And in roughly June of next year, we're planning to have pitching to the EU jury panel. We're a little bit later with that because we wanted to get feedback on what was good and not so good in those panel interviews. I think that's really all from us. The questions just come in. I don't know if it's been dealt with, I think. Thank you for those who've stayed with us. We had almost 300 people joining us this morning. We still have well over 100. Those questions will be put on our website, by the way, the 51 questions, 52 now that we've dealt with. So from me, it's a big thanks for joining us. And in my appalling Turkish, I will say herkese iyi yıllar, and Serkan will correct me and make it into Turkish.
Great. Thank you very much for all your time and efforts. Actually, I wish, yeah.
Thanks to everyone for joining us.
I wish all applicants good luck. They can reach us by phone, email, or any type of communication whenever they want. We are here to help.
Okay. Merve, do you have any final comments?
Please keep updated for new official work program. You can follow us on our official website and also via our social media accounts. And Happy New Year. Thank you for your great effort, Philip, Serkan, and to all project team.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Any comments from Merve Polat?
No, thank you so much for your contribution and presentations.
Okay.
Have a good year for all of the participants.
We look forward to it. Thank you. So I'll hand over to my colleague, Kemal, then to close the session. And once again, thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you for giving the floor to me, and I will continue in Turkish. Umuyoruz ki bugünkü proje yazma eğitimimizi faydalı buldunuz. Chat kısmında paylaştığımız projemizin ilgili helpdesk sayfası üzerinden etkinlik kaydını tekrar izleyebilirsiniz. Ayrıca sunumları da oraya yüklemiş bulunmaktayız. Yine Serkan Bey'in ilettiği gibi her zaman sizlere ulaştığımız mailler üzerinden uzmanlarımıza sorularınızı iletmeniz için bize proje ekibine ulaşabilirsiniz. Ben değerli TÜBİTAK yetkilileri Merve Diyarkaya ve Merve Polat Hanımlara ek olarak ayrıca proje ekibinden Selin Hanım ve Şelale Hanım'a da teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Ayrıca 2022 yılının da yine Filip'in Türkçe telaffuz ettiği şekilde sizlere sağlık ve mutluluk getirmesini temenni ediyoruz. Ayrıca proposallarınızda başarılar dileriz. Serkan Bey, sizlere de çok teşekkür ederiz. Her zamanki gibi yine harika katkı sağladınız bizlere. Yayınımız bir 10 dakika daha açık kalacak. Soru cevapları için, daha doğrusu sorularınızı alabilmemiz adına Q&A kısmını devamlı şekilde kullanabilirsiniz 10 dakika boyunca. Oraya gelen soruları biz daha sonra Filip ve Serkan Bey ile, hatta TÜBİTAK yetkilileriyle paylaşıp web sitemizde biraz önce paylaştığım helpdesk linki üzerinden yanıtlarını sağlıyor olacağız. Ola ki etkinlik sırasında aklınıza gelmeyen bir soru varsa bize bir 10-15 dakika içinde sürekli iletme şansınız olacak. Benim için de güzel bir etkinlik oldu. Görüşmüş de olduk çevrim içi olarak da olsa. Çok teşekkür ediyorum katılımınız için. İyi günler diliyorum herkese.
Okay, bye.
Bye.